Hey, everybody.
What?
Hi, guys.
What? Huh?
What's
voices. I'm hearing voices in my head. What's going on? That's hilarious.
So, welcome everyone to the Stumpt's Year in Review for 2018.
Hi. Hi. Howdy, y'all.
This is something that we do every year. We ramble for a long time about what our favorite games and stuff were, what our least favorite were, stuff like that. But this year, we're super excited to have our patrons joining us so that we can do some audience participation. What's going to happen is we've got a list of categories for things that we're going to talk about. And right before we start talking about them, we're going to link a poll in our chat here. And we're going to have the audience answer that question themselves. Then we'll give our answers to that question, and then we'll see what the audience thought.
Yeah.
Cool. So, to start off with, we're going to be talking about our most anticipated game of 2018. So these are the answers that we gave at the very end of last year's Year in Review.
Mine's funny.
And so I think it's always interesting to touch on that to see which games actually released and whatnot. So before we actually dive into that, I'm curious what the audience thought as well. So I'm linking the audience right now to a poll where they can write what their most anticipated game of 2018 was. Like try to think back, like as the year was beginning, what were you most excited about this year? And then we'll see if it actually came
Go back
out.
into the beyond. Doodaloo, doodaloo, doodaloo.
Exactly. Like that.
Exactly.
So to kick it off with, who wants to go first?
I'll go first because I just wanna start with a bang. Last year, towards the end of the year, I was playing a game that had just released in early access that I loved. But it just released, and we were like, okay, well, we're not gonna put that in like your favorite games or whatever because it's not out yet, technically, right? It's coming out later.
Yeah.
So this game, Empires of the Undergrowth, that was my most anticipated game of 2018. I have been following it all year, and they've had like one or two updates that have added a couple of small modes. And to be fair to the developers, I think that their success has led them to increase what they wanted to add to it, and they're giving frequent updates. So at least they're like talking about what's happening. Like, oh, we're working on this thing right now. Here you can look at the new music. Here you can see a video of the new character or the new type of ant, the woodcutter ants, all this kind of stuff. So it's like, it's all there. You can tell they're working on it at least. It's unlike other companies where they just disappeared for like 6 months, and it's like, oh, that was our game. But still, it didn't come out this year. So, here's to 2019, I guess.
You'll get it in 2019.
I mean, I have a game similar. I wrote down that in 2018, I was really excited to see Mineko's Midnight Market. Still not out yet.
Yeah.
Also, I wrote my book. I wrote everything in my little 2019 planner, and I've been drawing a cat every day.
You keep on adding cats to it.
I do. See, there's more cats now.
You're still holding out hope that maybe
I know.
Catlander.
Oh,
Should have 365 cats at the end of this.
Nice.
That's adorable.
I like that.
But I
All
also
in anticipation of Mineko's.
The real
Yeah.
question is, how many of them are going to be blue? How many of them are going to be Kevin? And how much do you hate your kid that you don't give as many pictures
It
to?
depends on how much I could use this silver Sharpie, which is really shitty.
There you go.
But I
the
also
limiting
wrote
factor.
down on anticipated games with Sea of Thieves. I have to say, I am disappointed by it.
Hey,
I also
save
put
God, that
down-
came out. Oh, I got to change one of my things on my
Yeah.
list.
I also put in Monster Hunter, and again, that was also something I'm disappointed in because I realized I'm not into the Monster Hunter genre.
Well, I remember rewatching last year and seeing what we talked about last year. You were talking about how you were like, I've never really played this game, and I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing if I'm into it, and it just wasn't, you just weren't a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
get
like I jumped in. We had issues with the multiplayer settings. We had issues even connecting to the servers. It was a real grind fest.
Yeah.
And because I have never really played any of the series before, I was just like, I had no idea what to expect. And apparently it's just more Monster Hunter.
And
It's
for
more
a
of the
game
same.
that is pretty dependent on playing with friends and playing multiplayer. I have to say the online experience in that game is pretty garbage. I don't know if it's better now. I know that when Ash and I played it on PS4, it was terrible. And I know that the early reviews when they released it on PC were also terrible. Just like the connectivity issues, actually getting into a lobby. It's just, how can you make a game where there's such an emphasis on playing with your friends and then make it so difficult to actually do?
Sorry.
So hold on.
Yeah.
We're talking a lot about disappointments here. Rick, what was your most anticipated game of 2018?
Fair enough. My most anticipated game of 2018 was Red Dead Redemption 2, and thankfully it released late in 2018, but it did release in 2018.
We don't need to talk about that one too much right now because, oh boy, am I going to be talking about it later.
Right. Suffice to say, I think most people have a lot of positive things to say. So I picked a good one. I picked a good one this year. We'll see what happens for 2019, though.
So I'll quickly go through mine. From rewatching last year's year in review, I listed 5, but I only really... There was one that was my top pick. So quick, the first 4 was Toe Jam. I was so sure Toe Jam was going to release this year. It didn't.
It's close. It's close, right?
It's real close.
Yeah.
That's what they said last year, though, too.
That's fair.
It's going to be... They have a release date. I believe it's March 20th. Anyway, A Way Out was listed as well. I didn't actually ever play it in 2018.
Yeah, that was Rick and Jazzy, yeah?
It was Rick and Jazzy.
But if you saw it, you experienced it, I would say.
Exactly. Anthem made my list as well. Didn't release.
No.
The Last Night, which is that Raw Fury really cool pixel art game, didn't release this year either. And then my top choice for most anticipated game that I was so hyped for was Spider-Man. And oof, I'm going to be talking about that game a whole lot.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick. Rick and Ash.
Let's see what the chat thought was their most anticipated.
Let's look at the poll.
So, people voted, and actually overwhelmingly, people were most hyped for Spyro.
Wow.
Yeah. That game was
so that.
There's some love for God of War, for Pokemon Let's Go, for Spyro, and for Celeste, but everyone upvoted Spyro. So
as your most anticipated. So this is the game that you were most looking forward to coming out this year, which honestly, I could see it amongst that list. We didn't know God of War was going to be as good as it was, right? Like based off of God of War 3, you would have said more of the same, whereas everybody seems to think that God of War, I still haven't played it yet. The new one is just like godly. Pokemon Let's Go, again, Pokemon had never proven that they could do anything other than a regular-ass Pokemon game. And Celeste is a small indie game. Spyro.
I have got to get better at playing my console, you know? Like, I crack into these games. I play them, like, twice, and then I have a hard time going back to them.
Well,
I
Rick,
still have yet to beat God of War.
I don't know if you heard Ash say earlier, but apparently no more games are going to come out for our console that I just bought because they're going to save them for PS5.
Are you serious?
We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about it later.
It's a maybe. Okay. It's a maybe.
All right. So we're going to be moving on to Best New Character.
Best New Character of 2018. I'll go first.
Yeah.
This was tough. There were a lot of games. I loved the characters, but there was one game in particular, and I feel like I really connected with this character.
Was it Leo?
It's not Leo. I considered Leo. Leo from A Way Out was in contention, but it was BK from Donut County. BK from Donut County.
Yeah. That's good.
The adorable raccoon protagonist, anti-hero. My good. I mean, I loved Donut County. It's like basically like the best new modern version Katamari type game that you can think of. And if you guys haven't played the game, I encourage everybody. I'm sure it's dirt cheap on Steam right now, and it's such a indie gem and delight to play.
It's the best. My best new character for 2018. I wrote 2, but the top one is definitely Atreus or Boy. God of War. I loved God of War, and the introduction of obviously Kratos' son Atreus. I have never been on such an emotional roller coaster with this child. Like, no character has made me feel so upset and angry and loving of this goddamn child besides Atreus. And so I definitely want to put him up there because I'm also very excited for the sequel because they've definitely put in some crazy cliffhangers at the end of that game. I also put in Leo as a second runner.
Okay.
Leo was fun.
Is that
Yeah, that
All the
game
Way
made
Out.
me cry. A Way Out made me cry.
Yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
game.
Ash?
I guess I'll segue into this one because mine ties into it a bit. First, I'll say if you guys out in Chatland aren't looking at the poll, I posted the poll
Yes.
in chat. Be sure to let us know what your favorite character is. For me, I didn't go with Atreus. I have a hard time saying that a character is my favorite character if I don't necessarily find them a super likable character. Doesn't mean that's not a good character. But Atreus is not super likable, in my opinion.
Well, he's not likable, but I mean, he's a good character.
Yeah.
He's a good
like,
character.
Yeah.
For me, I actually picked Mimir from God of War.
I like
'cause
Mimir.
Mimir is a super memorable character, and
He's the
I
head.
think he's great. He's such a
Wait,
huge
wait.
part of that game.
Did you say he's literally a head?
Yeah.
He's literally just a decapitated head.
He's a decapitated head that's been given
mean,
life,
not when you
and he
first
just
meet him.
lives. Then he lives on your butt, basically, and you just take him around. He's like a trinket.
Oh, like Rasputin, or not Rasputin, but like that
Yeah.
thing in Hellboy when he's carrying around like the little
Yes.
corpse on his back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta play that game. I gotta play
It's
that
such
game.
a good.
It's a
yeah,
good game.
such a
I'm
good
looking
game.
forward to it. I gotta finish Red Dead, then I gotta finish Horizon, and then God of War.
I'll mention. I also put down, and for me, I don't necessarily. I put it down as just like a second thing because I didn't think it necessarily counted. But I put Spider-Man on there. He himself is not a new character, but the version of him in this game is new.
Well, if we're talking about in games, I think that's fair because this is a reboot series of Spider-Man, and it's it's been. God,
I feel
a
like
decade.
on a technicality, sure, but like this is. I mean, like
You know what you could say?
this.
Miles Morales.
That's true, but
He's not
can you-
really.
He's not new
could
in
you-
comics, but he's new in movies and in games this year.
What
And-
was Miles Morales in the Spider-Man
Yep.
game?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't get to that. I didn't get.
Before
So
we
what-
move on to other stuff, I do want to say my favorite character from
Oh,
the
yeah.
year.
Oh.
Because it does actually bounce off of Ash's Mimir character, who is a disembodied head. Because my favorite new character of this year is Jerry the Skull from Graveyard Keeper. And he's literally a little skull that's like your little friend.
I've heard good things about.
And
Yeah, that's
he's-
actually good.
He's got like a really thick kind of like Cockney accent in the text, you could tell. And he just like
will
kind of
you
like,
break us off a sample of what Jerry sounds like?
well, when I do Jerry, I make him sound like this, Be like, oh, you silly graveyard keeper, you come on down here and you don't even bring the body with you. What are you thinking? I remember one time, right? Like, and he just like he gives you tales of like when he can't remember what he did when he was alive, but
When
he
he
remembers
was a
certain
young
things when it's
soul.
convenient. I just love him. I think he's great.
All right,
He's a
let's
cute
see
little
what
character.
the chat thinks because I've been following it this entire time,
Ooh.
and there's a couple of some really good.
So
I
suggestions
apologize
here.
while you guys are doing this. I really have to use the
Do what you gotta
restroom.
do. Do what you gotta do,
I've been
Jazz.
drinking so much
Jazzy's
water.
sick. Jazzy's
Jazzy's a little sicky, so she's been drinking liquids. But here's what the chat thought. So I'll just run down the list here. BK is on the list.
Yeah,
Boy
Yeah.
from God of War.
I might have put it there.
Arlo from Portia.
Arlo.
Everyone from Monster Prom.
Ben, that is actually such
great
a
one.
good suggestion.
Elfin from Octopath Traveler. And then Eunice.
Ah! Hey, she is a new character from this year. I will
well,
say.
and also scroll down. There's a couple
there are
that you
more?
don't have
Is there
on there.
more? They must have just added. So
No, they've been on there for a while. Go ahead and reload. Maybe you're
Yep.
not seeing them because also there's
Bowsette.
Bowsette.
and then
Yes,
Chris from
right?
U Chef.
There you
Chris.
go. Yeah.
Sup. So with everyone from Monster Prom, for my best new character option, I almost said Blobbert from Monster Prom because I love Blobbert, who I don't think any of y'all have seen.
No.
Because it's a very specific end game type thing. But he's this guy. He's a blob. He's an orange blob who everyone loves. Everyone loves him. And what he does is he solves every problem with greeting cards. Like,
Nice! That
it's
is
like he
such a good
carries
idea.
around a bag full of cards, and like people will be having a fight over some real stuff, and he'll be like, "Hey guys, this don't have to fight about this. It's me, Blabbert, and I just want to say you're my best friend, and you're my best friend too. And here's a card that says that you're my best friend." And then that's it. Like that, every solution to a problem is a greeting card from Blabbert. He's wonderful. He's wonderful.
I really like the Bowsette
Yes.
suggestion too. Like any of the ets from this year, I think
Chompette,
deserve special
Bouette,
mention.
they all deserve special
Absolutely,
mention.
yeah. That was a kind of a video game cultural phenomenon this year. So definitely special recognition for any ets out there.
Jazzy,
I
everyone
like
from
how
Monster
Chris
Prom
is in
won.
there. Yeah.
Yes, Chris. Sep.
I'm sad that Alphen didn't get more votes. Alphen from Octopath. I quite liked his story.
I need to
character.
play that game still. That
I
game looks
need to
amazing.
finish
Yeah,
it.
that's the problem is I've never played it, but I did see in looking at things online, Octopath got a lot of love when it came to new characters.
Yeah, a lot of people liked it. A lot
But
of
it
people liked the game. I
also
haven't played
is
it.
a game that's sort of like set in a time period. There's some things that are not okay to say. So there is like a whole storyline that's really like depressing.
There are a lot of
Apart
things
from
that are
that-
not okay to say.
Stuff.
Apart from that, like I did enjoy the game.
All right.
Cool beans.
So with that, we're going to be moving on to what our favorite sequel was of the year.
Yeah.
I feel like there's only one answer here.
I'll start. Well, there's
Do it.
several answers. I would say there's several.
Okay.
Red Dead Redemption 2 is incredible.
Yes, exactly.
Game. Incredible.
That's the
game.
one answer. Yes.
Is
No,
it
my
a
answer
sequel?
was
No, no.
God of War.
I was
It's
gonna
a
say
good
technically you can
sequel.
say God of War as well, and that's totally
true.
acceptable.
It's true.
But is Red Dead 2 a sequel, though?
Yes,
It's
it's
more
literally
of
called
a-
Red
It
Dead
literally
Redemption
has a
2.
2 in it.
But
It has
I
a
would
2
say
in the
it's
name.
a
It's a
prequel.
prequel.
It's a prequel.
Okay,
But-
fair enough.
It is called Red Dead Redemption 2. It is a follow-up to Red Dead Redemption that fleshes out the past of certain characters.
So that you can
but
enjoy
still-
the future.
But still, I would call it a sequel. And also, I didn't play God of War, right? So I can't put
Yeah.
that on this list. I can't put anything having to do with God of War on this list, even though I know from talking to Jazz and everyone who's played it that game is apparently incredible. And from what I watched, it looked pretty great. But I loved Red Dead. I think for me, the first Red Dead is a game that I played. I have played all the way through Red Dead 1, or not 1, because there's Red Dead Revolver. Red Dead Redemption, I've played through 3 times fully, 100%ing the game.
Yeah.
Just because like every couple of years I'd be like, why don't they make another one of these? Screw it, I'll play through that game again. And I love it. And maybe it's just
And-
growing up in the South, in that kind of like in the Southwest of America. When I'm
Yeah.
in those games, I'm living. I'm loving it. So Red Dead
And-
all the way.
I'm gonna also just jump in here because that is also my pick. And again, God of War, I know a lot of people loved. I played a bit of God of War, and it's a great game. But for me, like the open world type of sandbox games are definitely more my jam than the sort of third-person action games, which is what
More
God of War
linear,
is.
yeah.
I like them both, but I definitely lean more towards the sandbox open world games, which is why Red Dead Redemption 2 beat out God of War 2 for me. But honestly, this year, I mean, aside from those two, which are epic, there weren't a ton of amazing sequels that came out. I know that there were a lot of sequels, which I didn't get a chance to play, like Valkyria Chronicles 5 came out, or 4. I loved the last Valkyria Chronicles. I just haven't had a chance to play it.
And
So,
one that I don't believe any of us are going to say, but I think is definitely should be in contention is Overcooked 2.
That
Definitely.
it deserves an
It should
honorable
be in
mention.
contention. Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
these other games are superior in many ways. They have a massive budget and massive teams. But Overcooked
Yes.
2, love the hell out of it. That's how you make a
Yes.
sequel, is do the same thing but better.
exactly.
Overcooked 2.
Yeah. I think
And
the
I
reason
will
why
say, yeah, go. I'm sorry. Just because it's the same thing but better, there wasn't a whole lot of new stuff introduced.
Yep.
Great game, but these other games sort of raised the bar.
Yeah, and I think the reason why I put God of War as my best sequel is because I've always enjoyed the mythology of God of War and the fact that they're moving into Norse mythology, which is, I think, a bit more interesting than Greek.
Yeah.
But it was also just the fact that they really built this world. They made this beautiful world, huge monsters. The gameplay was just fantastic. The combat was great. But then on top of that, they made these characters that you just absolutely could not stop being a part of. Like, Atreus was, like I said, I have never been more furious at a character in my entire life.
Right.
But I also wanted to see where it's going. And like the whole, just the world building, the gameplay, and the story was just so good from like start to finish.
I'll add on to that, Jazzy, because I do think that like there's something to be said when a game can make you feel complex emotions about a character. Not just I hate you or I love you, but like I'm conflicted about you. That's really great because I think similar to Atreus probably would be Ellie in the first Last of Us game. We haven't played the second one yet, obviously, but like where you're sort of protecting her early on, and then as you go through, she starts to like get a little bit more adept
like headstrong, and she wants to be more independent.
Yeah, so you
and
see
the next
her develop.
thing you know, you're calling other people bad things, and you're going to turn this entire game around because you need to apologize. No.
Exactly. Yeah. And so like that, I do think that there's something to be said about that for sure. Yeah.
So my vote is also God of War, and I'm going to be talking about God of War a few times during this podcast. So I'm going to talk about God of War now specifically as a sequel, because I played the previous God of Wars just very lightly, and they never completely grabbed me because I mostly consider them just sort of like a generic action third-person game, sort of in the same vein as Onimusha and Devil May Cry, and like those are all good games, but like none of those games I ever took seriously from a story perspective. Like none of them are good story-wise, in my opinion. But this game set the bar so much higher than its previous games. Like its story is something to behold, and the fact that it changes so much from the previous games as far as like gear goes. Gear is so much more in depth in this game. The way that you just interact story-wise is so much different. But at the same time, the way that you just perform combat is still just as visceral, while at the same time, I feel like, I don't know, a lot more engaging and a lot more... It leads itself to just feeling a lot less generic than it did before, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and the component of having Atreus, like, you yell out to him to do certain things. He plays a different role. Yeah, I will say, from what little I watched, I do appreciate, because I've definitely played the first 3 God of Wars, loved those games, and having him be a complementary part of combat and like almost rock, paper, scissors and like all this kind of stuff, it definitely made it more complex and more engaging than previously, where it's just like, I'm spinning things around and I'm killing some dudes.
Yeah, and you compared it to a lot of games, and back in the day, I used to compare it to Prince of Persia because the 2 games released around the same time, and they sort of had the same mechanics. It was a third-person action kind of hack and slash that was pretty dependent on QuickTime events. And for me, it was just like, yeah, that's not really my cup of tea. But Prince of Persia sort of fizzled out, but this has remained relevant and found a way to sort of evolve with modern gaming, you know? It didn't just try to emulate the success that it had in the early 2000s, you know, and sort of update that for the modern times, but actually created something new and exciting. I think that it definitely deserves a lot of recognition from that.
I also want to add
go ahead. Yeah.
To the game is that the game also added a sense of scale, because some things are gigantic. Like the idea like these gods are still out there and they're doing things. Like the World Serpent is huge. He is ginormous. And like it kind of makes you feel really small because, you know, he's a demigod, but like for mortals, that has to be ridiculous to like live in that type of situation.
Well, and to be fair, that's actually a natural progression of the God of War games, because in like God of War 2 to God of War 3, it was gods you were fighting, and then in God of War 3, it was titans that you were fighting. So they were like, you were fighting, you know, it was almost like every level was almost like Shadow of the Colossus, where you're climbing up some giant titan to fight it. And so to know that they continued that's really cool. I would almost compare it, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like there's almost something to say about like, it's kind of like the Batman film franchise, where like the first ones were kind of like fun popcorn, or not even like the first 2, but like the Jerry Bruckheimer kind of stuff, right? Fun popcorn nonsense. You eat it, it's good, it's fun, and you're done with it. And then, you know, Nolan comes along and tries to sophisticate it, right? Yeah. And in that way, I feel like God of War has become more sophisticated.
I think that's
certainly everything
really
I've seen
comparison.
That was different from God of War is just that they've refined it. They've made it more sophisticated. Same game, but just nicer.
That's actually, I think, a really good way of describing it. Yeah. I mean,
I want to give one honorable mention too. I think that Vermintide 2 deserves a lot of love.
Great game
compared to its
Great
original.
game. Yeah. So much better.
It improved a ton upon its original, and it's just an all-around amazing sequel.
Yeah, for sure.
So, with
What's
that,
the audience think?
What's the audience think? Let me refresh the page one more time.
There's only 3 votes, you guys.
Is it
for the same games?
Technically, there's 9, there's 12, there's 15
Stunningly,
votes.
there are no votes for Red Dead Redemption 2. I can't believe that not one of you guys gave
Because it's not a sequel.
Red Dead Redemption.
7-2.
Shut your face. Oh, you know what? And Spider-Man's not a new character. Technicality.
Whoa. I love that Diner Bros Pizza's on there. So Overcooked 2,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Diner Bros Pizza, and that's the crazy thing. Diner Bros Pizza is not a sequel. It should be. I'm amazed,
They could have charged for it. They could have charged for it.
could have charged for it, and it's really cool what J-Full's doing because they're just allowing you to have a free update,
How much-
which is just essentially a sequel.
How much does Diner Bros cost?
Ben, thank you.
Because like
Diner Bros, what, $19.99, $15.99?
Because you could have charged $5 for that DLC, and it's $10. It's a $10 game.
$10.
So you could have charged $5, maybe $2.50. I don't know, whatever you want. You could have charged for that, and it would have been worth the price of admission because you literally doubled the length of your game.
I'm actually amazed about Diner Bros because I'm looking at this right now. It has like 100 reviews. Like, this game does not get a lot of love, and it should. We dismissed this game just based off of the logo alone. We were like,
The
this
logo
looks
Say
alone,
we.
I was-
You say we.
I was me.
the royal
He.
I'm sorry.
But the game it's complex and it's fun and it's challenging, and I don't know why this game doesn't get more love.
It's great. It's great. It's a great game. Yeah.
All right. So with that, we're going to be moving on to the best exclusive game.
I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Just
Hold on. Before I ask the audience to vote on this one, I want to make rules. There's guidelines to this. Sure. It can't just be console exclusive. It has to be console specific exclusive or PC exclusive or something. Like, it can't exist on multiple things.
Right.
So it has
And
to
it can't be
either-
timed exclusive.
It can't be timed exclusive either. So it has to be like legit. It only exists on that one platform. So for example, Sea of Thieves does not count because it exists on both Xbox and PC.
You have to buy it through the Microsoft Store.
So I had a hard time with this one because I was kept thinking Nintendo. Anything Nintendo is only going to be exclusive on Nintendo. So like Mario Party, Smash, and stuff like that. And then Ash reminded me God of War and Spider-Man are exclusive to the PlayStation 4. So I was like, oh, I should include those too. So there you go.
Well, so is technically Red Dead
Spoderman.
Redemption until they
No.
release
no,
on PC.
it's on Xbox.
No, it's on Xbox.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
It's on PlayStation and Xbox. No, Spider-Man.
God.
Spider-Man. That's my call. Spider-Man. Spoderman.
Yep.
John Spoderman
Yep.
is my answer.
Yep, that's
John
also my
Spoderman.
call.
John
My
Spoderman.
call is also John
No,
Spoderman.
Spoderman.
I am pointing at you. You are the one.
Yeah.
No, I'm not pointing. This is not pointing. This is my regular pointing.
No, while
For
you're
me-
pointing, I was pointing at you. Yeah.
I listed both God of War and Spider-Man on my answers as well, but it really, Spider-Man is... It's just so shocking that they even got that license and to get it to be exclusive as well. It's such an effing amazing game.
Well, I mean, it's Sony.
It's so.
I mean,
good.
it is
so
Sony, and
good.
Sony owns that IP already, yes, but
What's shocking about it is that a good Marvel game was made. That's
Right.
the shocking part, because as a longtime Marvel fan, I can tell you, for most of my entire life, there have not been any good Marvel games. There's been a handful here or there where you go, all right. Like, I played the Activision Spider-Man games back on the original PS1. They were okay.
They were pretty
know?
good, though.
But-
I mean, compared to other Marvel games, they were pretty good.
But like, considering Batman has had the superhero genre on, in video games locked down for years now, as being like the only superhero thing that's good, that's an actual licensed thing. I'm glad that Spider-Man came along and proved that, like, yeah, you can do this with Marvel too. You can do this with other characters that aren't Batman, because it does open up that window for it. So for me,
I
Spider-Man
would
all
argue,
the
devil's
way.
advocate here, there have been some decent X-Men games.
Some, but like nothing great. Like, I feel like there's nothing like that stands out. to me.
Nothing groundbreaking, and Spider-Man definitely was. And what's awesome is that Insomniac has been such an amazing studio. They really haven't had any breakout
good.
games on the new generation of consoles,
On the-
and
yeah.
and this really just like brought them into modern gaming and sort of established them. So now they have a
Yes.
a life, a lifespan going forward.
I love that this has finally, because for so long I've loved Insomniac. I love Sunset Overdrive, and for them to just sort of always be living on the fringes of not
War of
yet
the Monsters,
being a
baby.
triple A developer, they have deserved it for a long. They've deserved it since Twisted Metal Black. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. For them to always live on the fringes, I'm so happy that everyone at least knows of games that they've made now. They at least know of Spider-Man.
Yeah. And I mean, and they knocked it out. Critical success. I mean, you're hard pressed to find bad reviews for this game. And sure, I'm sure if you want to really look into it, you can find some faults. But by and large, this is almost a perfect game. It's kind of hard to say it's not the best exclusive game, other than God of War. I think there's definitely the argument.
Well, and the other thing I'll put out there is that Insomniac has been perfecting this game for as long as they've been around, because it is the natural progression of Spyro and Ratchet and Clank and all the other games that they've worked on in terms of it's this open world action platformer game. And Spider-Man is the perfect character to put on top of that. And I feel like Sunset Overdrive was the midpoint. And what was the other one that they did? They did
War of the Monsters.
the superhero guy on PlayStation 3.
Ratchet and Clank.
Oh.
No, not Ratchet and Clank. It was a character. They did two
Beautiful
games.
Joe?
No. Someone's gonna know what I'm talking about.
Superhero guy.
PS3.
Superhero guy on PS3. Oh, are you talking about Infamous?
Infamous. Yeah, they did the two Infamous games. Which
They-
Infamous?
Insomniac do that?
They
I don't think they did
no,
that.
Didn't they?
I don't think they did that.
Didn't they?
No.
Who did that?
No, they
then?
did.
They didn't.
A shooting game. They did the Resistance. Is that what they did?
They did Resistance. That's right. That's
Resistance,
right.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Which, Resistance was
Different game.
the competitor to Gears of War. Didn't quite do
I
as
could
well.
have sworn they did Infamous.
No,
did
so
Infamous then?
the studio up in Seattle, I can't remember their name right now, that's doing that new.
That was Sucker Punch, who then
Sucker
went
Punch.
on to do. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's
And
why
they
I
are
mixed
now
up.
working
Yep.
on that really cool looking ninja game that's also exclusive to Sony.
Yeah. Ash, I know this is
Sekiro?
gonna know you. I'm just gonna tell you right now, you are out of focus.
Do that.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's you're not out of
You
focus
just
to us.
you just scooted
it's
too far
bitrate.
back.
Yeah.
But on Discord,
No.
he looks fine.
No,
Yeah,
he was.
he
out of
looks fine on
focus for a while.
Discord.
It's weird.
So yeah, we've talked about exclusives.
Spoderman, great. Everyone
I guess
agrees.
the last thing I just want to say is that Sony in general knocks it out of the park with exclusives.
They really do.
because
Here.
Beyond
Yeah.
those two games, there's other Sony exclusive games that we could still talk about. Games that I haven't played, but when I was looking things up for what were the best exclusives of 2018, there's just so many Sony ones. Detroit Become Human was one of them.
Yeah.
They always
I know
get
there's
those,
a
though. The
lot of
Quantic
praise
Dreams.
for that game. All right,
All right,
let's take a look at what the audience thought.
What do they say?
So they listed Spider-Man, they listed Octopath Traveler, they listed Smash Bros. Ultimate, and they listed God of War. So 2 PS4 things and 2 Nintendo things.
Is Octopath? That's not exclusive though, right? Or is it?
It is.
It
no,
is.
it's exclusive to Switch. It's made by
Okay.
Square.
I thought it was
Is that
on
right,
PC.
Jess?
I thought you get it on PC.
Nope.
All right.
Nope. Just the
There you
Switch.
go.
That's why I haven't played it.
Gotcha.
A
And
couple
it
of
looks
Switch
great.
things. And honestly, there are a ton of Switch exclusives, which I would have included on the list if I had played them or played
Right.
more of them.
Right.
The fact is, I don't have a Switch. We have a Switch at the studio. That's the only time I get to play it. Obviously, Nintendo are the kings of exclusives.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna refine my answer. It's not Spider-Man. It's Snipper Clips. The end. Best game ever made. Love it.
Yeah.
But didn't come out this year, so it doesn't make sense.
All right.
Oh,
Spider-Man's
did it?
back.
Oh,
Spider-Man's
yeah.
back. Peter's back.
Spider-Man's back in the menu, boys.
All right, so we are moving on to best game setting.
I'm gonna go again, just because it runs right into it.
It's literally the same options, the same
Red
thing over
Dead
and over
Redemption
again.
2.
That's not true.
Red
That's
Dead
not true.
Redemption
Nope.
2.
Nope.
Gorgeous.
I disagree.
American West setting. For me, again, I feel like I'm biased because of my upbringing, but goddamn, everywhere I walked around in that game, I would just marvel. There were times where I would come over a hill and see like the landscape. You see the mountains, you see the hills, you see everything, and I would just stop and look. And it's been
You
a
know
long
when else
time
I've
since I
seen
played
that?
a game where I did that, and I loved it. I loved it.
You know what other game I've seen that in, though?
Go ahead, yeah.
I've seen that in the game called In Real Life, Man. I've seen that with my own eyeballs. I've seen it. Been there, done that. My choice is Mutant Year Zero. That's right. It's Earth, but it's the distant future. And everything has been overrun. And also, they're trying to make sense of the things that they're finding from the past.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious.
I'm surprised you didn't go with Donut County.
No, I thought about Donut County, but also, again,
good
I mean,
setting.
the setting was cute. The setting was pretty to look at, but I didn't think that it was necessarily original. Not to say that Mutant Year Zero isn't either, but I think that what really makes the setting for Mutant Year Zero original is the way that the characters in the game interact with the setting.
All right, so
Like
real quick.
if you were just looking at the maps, you'd be like, yeah, this is okay. But the way that the characters actually interact and make the settings come to life, that's what sold it for me.
What's the game that we played that was like a pool game, but you played like a pool, like a pool ball?
Pool
Full Panic.
Pool Panic.
Pool Panic? That's another great one. That setting,
Yeah.
when we looked at that map, I remember I
map
had
was bonkers.
so much fun looking at that map and what
The
they
map was
created.
bonkers,
So
yeah.
that's my runner-up is Pool Panic. All right, anyway, go ahead.
I mean, I'm a broken record. I'm going to name the trifecta of Sony, which is God of War, Spider-Man, and Red Dead. Those are
They're
the
all
best
great.
settings.
They're all great.
Those are active, almost real-life worlds. They have their own environment. They have their own economy and like their own population, and they just do things.
Oh, real quick, can I say about Red Dead? I will say this. This was one thing that I felt like for me when I was playing Red Dead recently that like really put it up higher on my list is walking around in the game. There is a town called Saint Denis, which is essentially New Orleans, and it's like they so well made it that it looks like a city from that time, and that it's got cobbled roads and streets, but it's got like a streetcar, like a train trolley that goes through. Like, it's what it would look like to have a city that is in that transition between Old West and New West, Old West and industrialization. And I like walked around in it, and there were so many times I was looking at it, I was like, I would like to just explore this town. Just this town, not even the rest of the map, just this town. And what I appreciate about Rockstar and specifically the Red Dead team was they took like a damn decade to make a sequel to that game. But man, oh man, does it look like they poured every minute into detail and into like just like the meticulously making sure that these areas were so well made. So love it. Love it, love it, love it.
So I'm going to talk about God of War again. But this time I'm going to talk about it just from their world. So God of War, first of all, it's always been a game, I think from all of the originals, it's always been a game where the camera follows you in one continuous shot throughout the entire game. At least I know that 3 did that. I don't know if the first 2
3 definitely did that. The first 2 did similar. Yeah.
But yeah, in this game, the camera does play such a huge part of your experience of it because there's so many moments where you're introduced to a new environment and everything is perfectly symmetrical and it just looks effing amazing. There's so many different environments in the game too, where you go from snowy to gorgeous fields to literally like neon gods, stuff like that, and it's just so effing breathtaking. And the fact that there are essentially entire levels that end up come crashing down and have movement that you would never expect any other game to accomplish what they accomplish, and to have it be part of the setting, to have it be part of the environment that is moving around you.
And when it comes to God of War, yeah, like you're right. Like I saw somebody on Twitter who was posting about the composition of the settings of God of War and the way that it does, like the way that when the camera pans in on certain things or certain areas, the composition of the shot will have certain things present on the screen which will direct your eyes like naturally towards a certain thing that you're supposed to be looking at, or like a certain focus of the scene, so the art direction coupled with the actual environment of that game was pretty amazing.
Yeah, Niflheim does the best example of it, where when you go into the elf world, Niflheim, you go down this boat and you go down this river, and then the moment you go past this curtain of like trees, you see the palace of Niflheim, and it's almost like Sauron, but it's got like these 2 huge towers. In the middle is supposed to be a crystal that you're supposed to like activate, but like it's just perfectly, like everything just looks beautiful. It's got this great like color choice, the composition, everything is just very focused on where you need to go.
Yeah, to me, Jazz, I can't remember if it was Niflheim. I just remember being introduced to an area, and there was, like, my character was just perfectly framed up in this, like, neon triangle. And it looked like a shot from Tron, basically. Everything was just neon and amazing, and good God, that game was just gorgeous.
I want to acknowledge a couple
I'm
things
looking
that are
forward
being...
to playing it for sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I want to acknowledge a couple things that are being said in chat. And actually really good points. I was on the fence about using Subnautica. Because Subnautica technically did release this year. It's been obviously in early access for a while, a game that I've been playing a ton of. And I absolutely love the setting of Subnautica. I feel like it's amazing. It's beautiful and it's scary. They do so many things right. I just feel like I'm copping out a little bit when I use a game that was in early access for so many years and then actually put it on my list of game of the year, though I am going to do that in one instance at a point on this list. So I mean, but like definitely special recognition to Subnautica because man, and especially for a small team like Subnautica has, they did an amazing job.
For sure. And Jezebel also mentioned she added Spider-Man to this list because of her old New York heart nostalgic. Like Spider-Man has an absolutely amazing setting, but I always feel a little bit weird when like nominating a game like that for a nomination like this because they're pulling from real life, and I feel like it doesn't. Obviously, it's well made, but I feel like it requires more creativity to do something like what God of War did than to just do New York City.
Recreate something that exists and do it really well.
And so I'm from New York City. I did elementary school in New York City, so I love seeing the recreations. My first thing that I always do is I try to find my apartment in the game, and I love how well detailed that game is, and it's amazing. But yeah, that's why I didn't put that one on
I know.
the list.
I wish there were more games set in Las Vegas because I really love doing that. Like I remember forever ago when the game Driver came out. Do you remember the game Driver?
Yeah.
There was a scene set in Las Vegas, and part of that was similar to like what they're talking about with Spider-Man. You know, it's like, oh, it's so realistic. They have every street, and it's. I was like, no, that's not true. Because I've driven down these streets, and it's nothing like
you're missing
Las
a couple
Vegas.
here.
Yeah, you really messed up.
Another one I'll briefly mention because I still think Red Dead's better. But Far Cry 5 had, I think, a beautiful setting. They did a very good job making it look the way it should. I have a ton of problems with Far Cry 5 that'll come up later, but I will say overall they did a great job of recreating again a setting that I love, which is the American West. They did Montana beautifully. Like, I mean, it was a gorgeous game. Walking over hills, going through forests, all this kind of stuff. Gorgeous. So, anyway, Far Cry 5.
And I will give just a quick nod as well to Spyro that I think did an amazing job recreating. It's already gorgeous worlds, but making them so just like that game is just graphically so good for a game that draws from something 15 years ago.
I will say I had so much fun exploring places that I already knew but didn't recognize right away. You know what I mean? Like, I played those games so much that every time I would pop into a new world, I would be like, oh, it's this level, right? Like, and I remember there's a thing around here, but like it looking so much more polished and well done. It's clear that the team that worked on the Reignited trilogy loved the Spyro games. It is clear that they understood what was so loved about it because you've seen so many re-releases and shovelware and all this kind of stuff that like just kind of like is just thrown out to be like, let's capitalize on this thing. That game is perfect.
Yeah,
it
one
is
of the main
superior version of Spyro. The end.
One of the main character concept designers for Spyro was hired because he was doing Spyro fan art. Like he was just doing the fan art on his own. They're like, this is great. Would you like to design half of our dragons?
Would you like to take this character that initially had 20 polygons and turn it into one with 20,000 polygons, you know? Oh, I love it.
I'm excited to look into what our fans are saying.
Let's see what they say.
Because I've been following along, and there's
a
actually
lot.
some really good.
So let's go. The people, I'll list them off here. Return of Obra Dinn.
Oh,
That
that is
is
great.
It's neat.
Solid.
It's neat. It's definitely neat, yeah.
Monster Hunter World.
Gorgeous, for sure.
Octopath Traveler. Subnautica. Fallout 76. Spider-Man PS4. Celeste.
Celeste is very good, yeah.
Shadow of the Colossus Remastered. Gris. and where the water tastes like wine.
I
There's a
still
lot
need
of
to
good
play
suggestions
Gris.
there.
I still need to play
I
Gris.
will say. Go ahead, Jess. Yeah.
I will say I agree with Return of Obra Dinn, and I actually put that in one of my later categories. Obra Dinn's setting is so incredible. You are just on a decrepit boat, and you're just trying to figure out what happened. And the setting changes based on what you find as like remains. And it's just insane because you are in nothing more than an empty boat that has like a few corpses on there, and then everything just starts to unravel. Then you get all this other stuff, and then you find out that there's like sea creatures that killed half these people. It's insane. So
And graphically, it's really original. The graphic,
Yeah.
the art
Yeah.
style that they went for is really cool, really original.
Also, I agree with the Fallout 76 settings, even though it is. I'm gonna say Bethesda is on my shit list lately, but
Yes.
it was nice to see Appalachian Mountains actually have real critters in the world instead of just monsters constantly.
I agree. There are a ton of faults to be had with 76, obviously. But what really pissed me off about everybody jumping on the hate Fallout 76 bandwagon was the way that they were knocking the environment, calling it ugly, calling it unoriginal. As far as Fallout games go,
Yeah,
this
it
was
was
the
very
most
unique.
original
Yeah.
environment, and it was the most fun to explore.
Go
so while
play
there were
Fallout
tons
3,
of problems,
New
yeah.
Vegas, and 4, and tell me that those settings are any different,
There
even though
was-
they all take place
yeah.
in different parts of the country.
Exactly. Fallout 3 is such a boring environment, and you totally nailed it. Like if you look at between Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, so much is reused.
It's the same.
Like
Same
And
name.
Fallout New Vegas. Everybody,
And Vegas.
I like Fallout New Vegas. And as far, like, from a storytelling perspective and from the choices that you have in the game, it's definitely the best Fallout game that, like, new generation Fallout game that you could play. But as far as the setting goes,
exactly
it's
the
ugly.
same as the
It's
DC
boring.
from Fallout 3. Exactly the same.
It's the worst. It's not fun to look at.
It's
so
just a desert.
It's
Fallout
slightly
76
redder.
has a good setting.
I feel
yes,
like,
right.
like Fallout 3 is slightly greener, and Fallout and
Right.
New Vegas is slightly redder, but otherwise same setting.
And again, like I was just talking about how I wish that there were more games set in Vegas. This is a game set in Vegas, and as a kid who grew up in Las Vegas, it left me wanting.
I bet because your whole city was destroyed.
Right.
For Greece, I will say with Greece, or is it Gris? Greece.
I
don't
say
know.
Gris.
I say Chris.
I think that it suffers from the problem of it just came out. It just came out at the end of the year, and therefore for us, none of us have played it yet. Even though we played it at PAX, and I was very excited for it, and everything I've seen on it is gorgeous. I watched Hunter play a little bit of it, and I totally get why it's in there. And it just falls in that, like, when we do these end of year things, it falls into a zone where it doesn't work next year, but it doesn't really work this year because none of us got to check it out and give it a fair shake.
Yeah. We just didn't have time to play it.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
also
on my list
mention-
of games. Yeah.
Shadow of Colossus is a game that I still want to play, and
you never played
I
it?
love that it is not just an HD remaster; it is like a true recreation. Like
never played Shadow of Colossus.
I played the original. Like I
okay.
played it when it was
Okay.
first.
Okay.
But this is the remaster, and
Gave me
it
a
is.
heartbreak. Yeah.
That's why I'm saying it's not just an HD upscale.
Right.
It is a like it is. They remodeled everything.
Yeah, like Spyro.
Yeah.
Like Spyro.
It's still the same story, but
Worth
it's
playing
remodeled.
again though because
Everything
of
is
the updates.
built from the ground up.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
No, that's great. Yeah.
So yeah, it does look gorgeous, and yeah, I do really want to play that at some point. All right.
All right. Next one.
We're moving on to co-op game of the year.
Well,
for
I'm
2018.
really excited to hear what your guys' answers are here.
I guess I'll kick it off. I think the best
Yes.
co-op game is A Way Out. It
Yes,
was a game
Jasmine!
perfectly made for co-op. You
Me and you both!
You relied on your buddy. You relied on your buddy to get through these things, and they had perfectly good puzzles for two people.
Yes.
There was choices that you guys had to like argue over,
Yes.
and then it was such a good ending, even though they
Absolutely.
were both so sad.
Jasmine, I picked the exact same thing,
Yeah.
and of course we're the only two who are going to pick this because we're the only
Because
two
you
that
know you
played
played
it.
it.
But as far this was the most original co-op game that I played in so long. A lot of people complain, they're like, it's boring, there's not a lot of there's a ton of choices, but this was like an experience. The gameplay was fun, but it was a gaming experience that was directed with such a keen eye that like this was like a movie, an interactive movie. You know, everyone's going off about Bandersnatch. Ew, oh, it's groundbreaking. It's blending television with video games. No. A Way Out did it way better earlier this year, okay? So and also, not only was this a small-scale production, this was an affordable game that you could play with only one copy, which was so like
That's really cool.
It's really cool. It was really cool of them to do because they definitely could have charged for people to buy it twice, and they said no. If you own one copy, then your friend can play along with you, even online.
And that's what I love about it because it's a game that requires co-op. You know?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's not a game that was like you can like go into some matchmaking something. It's like no, they need you to be playing with a friend, someone you know. You know.
What I also love was there's so many little mini games that you could pit Vincent and Leo with. There's just like, let's play Pong. Let's see who can win. Yeah. Let's play chess, checkers, darts. Everything had like co-op. Let's watch
pick up
dishes
a guitar,
together.
You get on the piano, you know? Yeah, let's play a little music together.
Let's wash these dishes together, you know? It was so cute.
And, you know, it was heartfelt. Like, I think that Jasmine and I both teared up at the end.
Yeah.
You know, like, you really formed attachments. You really cared for the characters. Price talked about it earlier when we were talking about what makes a game really great is, do you identify with the characters? Do you actually feel for them? You know, do the characters evolve throughout the game, you know?
Because you're so conflicted at the end, too, depending on which ending you take. Because you're like, both endings don't end well. For either character. It's either one or the other. And it's so hard to play it that way because you want them both to have a good, happy ending, but you can't.
And that's, I think like that's what it really comes down to, and without spoiling anything, because I did watch y'all's towards the end of the series just to see like kind of like what's this game about, and I spoiled the ending for myself. But if you're playing it with a friend and you don't know what's coming, the ending, what ending you get is sort of a competition, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of like, oh.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily working together. You know what I mean? So there's a piece there where I think that, like, I appreciate that because in the moment, when you spent this entire game building your relationship together, to then have that final bit be that. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I think we saw all 2 endings, or is it 3 endings?
I think it's just 2.
I think it's 2, and we saw both of them.
It's one or the other. And
it tears you. You're like, no, I don't want to have to do this.
Yeah,
I know. I was like, why can't I just put the gun down?
Right. You're like,
I want to put the gun down.
I just want to turn the game off now and just say, you know what? Just step away. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely, Jasmine. I 100% agree. I'm glad that we're both on board here. A Way Out is amazing. And if you guys are looking for something fun to play with a friend or significant other, then I cannot recommend this game more highly.
Yep. So I'll jump in with my answer because I didn't play that game, and therefore my answer is Overcooked 2, because I thought, as far as, you know, we play lots of co-op games, we play lots of 4-player games, multiplayer games all the time, and I feel like Overcooked 2 was a fantastic continuation of Overcooked 1 and just like really honed in a gameplay that I think is perfect to play with any group of people, right? Like, you know, people think Mario Party, Smash Bros, any of those, pick up some friends and you'll play this. Overcooked is the one that you should play. I think Overcooked is better than those games, and also I'm drawing from external experience because my brother was telling me that he and his friends started playing Overcooked, just like, and they don't play games. They play Fortnite and Overcooked. And that's
always the first game that I suggest to people on Reddit, like on our gaming and our games and stuff, when people ask like, I've got my niece and nephew over for the weekend. What do I play with them? Overcooked. Overcooked.
Done.
My family's coming over. We want to play games. What do we play? Overcooked. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Always the first answer.
Yeah. So Overcooked 2 for me, without question.
For me, I picked, like, I do think that Overcooked is a great answer, but for me, my answer was very much dependent on which game did I want to play as soon as we were done playing it for Stumpt, and Overcooked was not that for me. So for me, I picked Vermintide 2, because I played a lot of that on my own, even without y'all. And I think it has great co-op, and it's just a great game overall. And then I also listed Strange Brigade. They're both very similar games.
Great game. Great game, Strange Brigade.
But yeah, I think both of those, especially Strange Brigade in general, is an awesome game to play with friends because it's much more about the event, and it's very much just about just finding stuff and exploring the world. So yeah, both super fun games, both games that are online, but also games that are meant to be played co-op.
I will say
that's a really good
go
point.
ahead.
Yeah. Oh, nothing. Just like I didn't even think of Stranger Brigade. I don't know why that slipped my mind. I'm not as huge a fan of Vermintide as you, but Stranger Brigade is the one that hooked me.
Strange Brigade isn't on anyone's list. Like I was looking at lists this year for top whatever awards. Strange Brigade made none of them. Like I couldn't find it.
I feel like that was like criminally omitted from.
It was criminally overlooked just in general.
Yes,
by people.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would say that, so for me, earlier I mentioned a game when I was talking about how Capcom's terrible at making online stuff, Lost Planet 2. There's also a game that I played back on the Xbox way back in the day called Brute Force. That again, these are games built around the concept of playing with your friends, right? They don't work playing solo. They only work if you play with 2 to 4 friends. Strange Brigade definitely made me feel exactly like that. Like I was playing Brute Force, like I was playing Lost Planet 2, and I was like, these were the games I played with my friends in high school, going into college. I would play like with my younger brothers and stuff. Strange Brigade is great. That game is fantastic.
All right. Bryce, did you give your... You said over... Okay. Should we see what
Yes.
Should we see what the chat has to say?
What does chat say?
All right. So chat has said, just shape some beats. That's a great answer. Farm together as well.
Oh boy.
That's
the winner for our for our fans. I feel like there's a little bit of bias there.
Yeah.
Played a lot of that.
You know what? I played a ton of that. Like there came a point where I just never logged back in, but there was like a good 3 weeks where every single day I was going in and working on my farm.
Best clicker game I ever played.
Absolutely. Diner Bros, Monster Prom, Overcooked 2, Raft,
Also
Light
great.
Fingers, and Unravel 2.
Great list, y'all. There's some games on here that I will say this. I wanted to put Raft on my list, and it's not on here because I couldn't find a slot where I felt like it outdid some other game. But I wanted to mention it at some point because I felt like what a great game and what a great evolution of that early demo that they made. So good shout on y'all for putting that on your list. I appreciate
And I
that.
want to really focus in on Diner Bros here because Price, you chose Overcooked 2, and Overcooked 2 is
I like
amazing.
Diner Bros more than Overcooked. I will say that. It came out 2017 though.
Yeah.
Wait, did it?
Did it?
It did. November of 2017. Yeah.
Okay, well then
true.
there's the reason why. Well, I do want to say though, as much as I love Overcooked 2, there was new stuff in it, and but it felt pretty similar to the old stuff. Diner Bros could have easily just tried to copy off of the success of Overcooked, and when we initially started playing it, that's what we were afraid of. Okay, we thought maybe we'd get one episode out of it. Okay, let's just see what this is. But they do it in a completely new and refreshing way. Like they really put their own spin on the sort of cooking sim game.
Yeah.
It's two different versions of the same thing because Overcooked is an arcade game at its heart, whereas Diner Bros has a persistence. So it's almost like an RPG because you earn money, you buy upgrades, even though if you look at it long form, it carries out basically exactly the same in terms of the progression. Diner Bros, you feel ownership over the progression, whereas Overcooked is just like a bunch of puzzles. Solve these different puzzles that deal with
And
the
I
same
like that
problems.
there's clearly defined roles, you know, like Jasmine and I just sort of became the de facto servers in Diner Bros. So like every time the level starts, it's not like, okay, let's figure out what role we're going to do. It's like the level starts and Ash and Price, they know we're the cooks and I'll take this side of the kitchen, you take that side of the kitchen. Jasmine and I were servers. We know our roles each time the level starts. Yeah, it's a great game. And we talked about this before. $9.99. Go buy this game.
with
Review
a free update that doubled the content. And I'll
Right.
say for the stuff that we do, because I think that for me at least, my favorite stuff that we do is when we become one brain. You know what I mean? Like where it's like we are
We are
We're so in
stumped.
sync.
We are
we are in
hive.
sync. Yeah, that is my favorite thing that we do on our channel. And Diner Bros, without question, captures that better than almost anything that we played. So yeah,
I mean-
Diner Bros for sure. Yeah.
Working in food service, it definitely is. It's just like that's it. You have a cook, you have a prep, you have front service, and you have somebody that like floats. And I've been in that. Like, I know exactly what to do. I know how a team needs to fall in. And like, when people are saying this person's not doing enough because they're not, holding their weight, if you are on prep, that is the core source of what you're doing.
The best way you can help is to not
F
leave
you
your
for
prep
thinking
station.
that's not real. You need prep. Like, do you know how much prep a restaurant goes through before they even open service? They
Just
get
because
there,
you have nothing to prep at the moment does not mean that you're not participating.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and call it out.
There's the too many
specifically.
cooks in the kitchen saying, and it's like, don't move your prep station because you're just going to interfere with the cook if you try to barge in there and start cooking.
I'm going to call it out
systems.
specifically because in Pizza Bros, what we were playing recently, there have been some comments saying, Ash ain't doing nothing. As the other dude in the kitchen, Ash is doing a lot because I'm doing like the fries and the chicken and I'm doing the salads. Ash is doing the pizza.
and
What's
the
the
bread.
game called?
Yeah.
It's called Pizza Bros.
Pizza Bros.
Yeah.
So
I saw that comment, and I was happy to see in the more recent episodes, people were like, Ash is making so many pizzas so quickly.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Thank
Ash
you.
has it down. He understands what
Yeah.
he's doing. And it's like, because he has that covered, I can focus on my stuff, and I never even think about pizzas.
That's how a good kitchen should be.
Exactly,
Yes.
right? It's like, because I've been playing it single player. Check it out on my channel soon. And it's one of those things where I'm like, oh my God, making pizzas and doing the chicken and doing the salads. I'm losing my friggin'
Bryce is like,
mind. Where's Ash?
get Ash in here!
So for this list here, I will also give a shout out to Unravel 2. That's a game that me and Jasmine have been thinking about
Cute game.
playing.
Cute game.
And I mean, yeah, it's a game that's made, again, specifically for co-op that I think should be played by us at some point. And I think it's great when games do that. I think that game did itself a disservice by basically doing one of those things where just like, and it's out now. And
Yeah.
like no one had the
Sometimes that
hype to
works,
drive that game.
and sometimes it don't, and that didn't.
Yeah.
Unless you're a huge game and you're announcing it at E3, that's not going to work.
I just remember when
Yeah.
it popped up, and it was one of those things where like we were like, oh, it's out? Wait, that game's out? I'm
I think
in the
that
middle of
was at
doing these other
E3, Rick.
things.
I think that was during EA's E3 thing.
It wasn't
but
EA's
it wasn't.
E3
But it
thing.
wasn't a big game.
Well, no, because
Exactly.
it was like they said like, and you can play it now. Oh, also we're releasing, and then they talked about some huge game that was coming out, and everyone
Exactly.
completely lost.
It was just overshadowed.
Here's
Yeah.
this game to go play. Yeah.
And I'm going to be pedantic here. The reason why I didn't include some games, and a couple of these are on the best co-op of our fans. Light Fingers and Monster Prom, I would call those multiplayer, not co-op.
Yeah, those are competitive multiplayer rather than cooperative multiplater.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I felt the same thing like about Light Fingers. And Light Fingers is a great game. I'll also say there's some games in there that can be played solo and not just co-op. So like Just Shapes and Beats.
True.
Sure. Well, Overcooked you could technically play solo, I guess.
That's true.
Exactly.
It's not fun.
And,
I'll tell you
and
that.
Diner Bros, like you have tried to do.
I
let's-
have done. Thank you. I've beaten. Thank you.
Let's move on. Best indie game.
I'll go ahead and start.
I'll start. Oh, no, Price will start.
Oh,
Wow.
I'll go ahead and
All
start
right.
because this is a game that I was hyped for a very long time, and I do believe it came out roughly towards the beginning of the year. Celeste, which most of y'all
Yes.
have heard of, maybe not everyone has played. I was hyped for it. I had played it at the previous PAXs, building up to it. It was exactly what I had wanted and more because they added the whole component that this is essentially a game about mental illness, but it's told through the like kind of Super Meat Boy-esque, hyper fast, what do they call it? Hyper death labyrinths or something like that, where you constantly die until you succeed.
Right.
In order to communicate a lot of story that was very touching about depression and anxiety and a whole bunch of other stuff, which I personally connected to, but also I just appreciate more games doing that. So for me, best indie game, Celeste, fantastic game. Go check it if you haven't.
Mine is Donut County.
Yep.
Donut County, amazing game, delightfully cute. Art aesthetic is so amazing. I would call it the spiritual successor of Katamari Damacy. We did get or an updated version of Katamari with reroll this year, but we haven't gotten a new Katamari in years. If you guys are looking for something with that same flavor, this game is amazing. And also the developer, what an amazing dude, and he had to compete with like some stupid
Oh my
stuff.
God.
Like right before launch, there was somebody who basically just released a cheap ripoff of his game on mobile.
I still see advertisements for that stupid ripoff game on Instagram. Like that ripoff game shows up all the time for me. I was happy to see when I was looking at the App Store on Jasmine's iPad that Donut County is out on iOS devices, and it's up on like the top 5 selling games on iOS.
Good. So quality wins out.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny is that I found out today that the inspiration for Donut County was actually from a parody Peter Molyneux Twitter account, which said, idea for a game, you're a hole, and you have to swallow things. And I was like, and then he made the game based off of that one
that's great.
tweet. Yeah, I was like, okay, that just makes me love the game even
Oh,
more.
man. And they made a
great.
better game than Peter Molyneux could.
And they made a better...
Donut
exactly.
County is like the best. It's the best indie game this year. Like I put up a couple of them, like Below and Moonlighter and Minute and Oberdin. And they all have their own features and the reason why I like them. But Donut County, I think, it's got the Katamari aspect. It's got a really good story. It's bonkers as all hell because they have a dictionary for every single thing that you like swallow. And like snakes are danger noodles. Like trash cans are obviously just homes to live in, or something like that. They all have like their own little dictionary and like phrases of what they consider. And then like, of course, the Raccoon King with his hand stuck in a pickle jar. Like I lost my shit when I saw that.
Yeah.
That was like the funniest thing in the world.
Yeah, the story is really cute and it's really endearing and and it's a quick play too. Like it takes like 3 hours to play. It's adorable.
So if you're not rushing out to pick it up right now, next Steam sale, pick it up, play it. You'll appreciate it for sure.
How much is that game too? That game is only, it's $12.99. Buy it full price. $12.99. It's worth twice that.
Ash?
So I've got 2 on my list. So first I'll mention Into the Breach. I think
Oh yeah.
Into the Breach,
The tactics.
great game made by the creator of FTL. And I think just like gameplay wise, it's so simple it's what you have to learn to play the game. You just click and move and attack, and it's all about just finding the appropriate positioning and strategy to how you position your 3 units, and how you can combo those attacks to be the most efficient and save the most people. The reason it's not my outright favorite is because I've never beaten it, because it is incredibly hard towards the end. It is almost frustratingly hard towards the end, but it is an extremely well-made game, and I recommend it to anybody. My other game that is my indie game of the year is a game called Floor Kids. It is a game that's all about breakdancing, and the music's done by Kid Koala. All the animation's done by an animator called John. And it's actually an extremely simple game. There's really just 4 buttons and the left stick, and different combinations of those will do different breakdance moves, and it's all about just earning the most points by doing different combinations of breakdance moves to this amazing soundtrack, of which there's a ton of songs in that soundtrack. And it's actually a fairly substantial game. Like, I played it mostly on Switch when me and Jasmine traveled down to Santa Fe, and I think I probably put about 8 hours into it, and I got done with all the levels, and there's still more that I could do to like 5-star every level, basically. But yeah, it's a really, really well-made game that I highly recommend. I feel like it's a really sleeper game that not many people heard of.
I haven't heard anyone other than you talk about it.
How is this game not on mobile?
I want to know why Into the Breach isn't on mobile, because I feel like that can be perfectly made for mobile.
There are several games that would be amazingly adapted, but seeing how there's only really 4 buttons in this game, it's like
Floor Kids. I mean, yeah, it is a lot of very fast switching, so I'm not sure how well that would work. But yeah, it is super cute, so I do feel like that would lend itself fairly well to mobile as well. Those are my picks.
I do want to throw one more thing out there, and this I'm putting an asterisk on it because this is one of those situations that we run into with early access. I think Slay the Spire technically came out of early access this year. But if you go look at Steam, it'll say it came out last year. But Slay the Spire for sure is a game that I have put more hours into than like any other game this year, probably. Like just individually, because I keep coming back to it. I'm now probably, I think I was looking at it on my Steam list, and it's made it into like, I think the top 5 of my most played games. And I've only been playing it for like a year. And you got games like Isaac that I've put, 4 years worth of hours into, and that it's competing with. So I just want to put that out there as like, I would have included it on this list if early access didn't make it so hard to know when does the game come out.
Right.
Yeah.
Slay the Spire is amazing now.
It's a great game. It's a great game.
Yeah.
It just did workshop support. Oh boy.
I'll also give a honorable mention to Just Shapes and Beats. Didn't quite edge out any of my other things, but it also came out this year. It is indie, and what that developer did, especially getting that good of a soundtrack as well for it, is very substantial.
Yeah. It's an experience. It's a good one.
Yeah.
And a painful.
What do our fans think?
What do our fans think? So let's see. So, on the list, we got Return of the Obra Dinn,
Such a good game.
Moonlighter, Donut County, Florence, which I believe
heard of that
Firestar
one.
said is a mobile exclusive game.
Oh, interesting.
Celeste, Equinox,
Equilinox.
Equilinox, and then Gris.
And also,
and then
then Wonder Song, which I can't praise enough. Actually,
Great
that
game.
was on my
Great
that
game.
was on my short list. Wonder Song is so fun, and again, a game that really touched me. Like there were many times I got teary-eyed in that game. There's a lot of heart and soul to that game. And also another game that I played, which really gave me a the Goonies, sort of a Stranger Things vibe. Crossing Souls from Devolver.
Crossing
also
Souls.
another great game. Yeah.
So, real quick, I want to talk about Equilinox because this is a game that I would like to play. It just came out at the end of November, and from what I understand, it's sort of like Sim Life. Like it's a little like kind of sandboxy kind of thing where you kind of direct evolution and life and mutation and stuff. It has a really neat voxely style. Northern Lion did a showcase on it, so that's what I watched. But apparently it was a YouTuber or Twitch streamer who made it, and they spent like a year putting this game together as like kind of like a thing that they would stream and talk about while they were making it, and then they released it. And so there's also just like an interesting backstory behind like how it came to be. Neat game.
cool.
I want to check it out. For
I
sure.
just requested
it's
a key
up
for it.
Yeah, it's up my alley for sure.
The graphics, all the polygons make me think of Wildlands.
It
Wildlands?
looks-
Yeah, a little
it looks
bit.
like-
A little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But not
Yeah.
as zoomed in. Wildlands.
Yeah.
Wow, I
Wildlands
forgot
or
about that game.
what was the other game that we played that was like a sort of there was like a
paper
little
one?
bit of like an ecological story being
Oh,
told. with
Eco.
it. Eco.
Oh,
That would have
Eco.
been good if it wasn't
boy.
so.
add
If it weren't dependent on having an entire server of
Say,
people.
Yeah.
let's add to my
contributing.
WTF moments of the year. That one.
It was a great game though. It was a great game. I think just a little bit too ambitious.
Yeah.
So speaking of what the Fs, we're not quite there yet, but the next topic, Ash.
Oh, boy.
Yes. So, biggest gaming disappointment of 2018.
I'm really
think
curious
we're in
to see if we
agreement for a
all
lot of this.
agree about this. Let's see.
There's one that we all agree on for sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Should we just say
Do we want to say it at the same time? Do we want to count it down and see?
I have
curious,
two, but yes.
I think
I'm
we can all
curious
count
if
on
the
the one
one-
that we know we all were
The one that we're
disappointed by.
all in agreement on. Let's see if we all
Okay.
pick it.
Yeah.
3,
Count us down.
2, 1. Sea of
Sea of
Thieves.
Thieves.
Yep.
Yar!
Yeah.
What garbage it was.
I was really hyped for Sea of Thieves because Rare has not made a good game in a long time.
Yeah.
And they were making this pirate game and it was supposed to be open world and it looked
Yeah.
gorgeous. I think the reason why it's done so poorly is I think because Microsoft probably lit a fire under their ass and be like, you got to put this out now, even though it was clearly not ready to go out. Also,
And I'm gonna
it's
call-
just such an empty
No
world.
content. No content.
I'm gonna call back to the shit I was giving Microsoft, and like this was an exclusive, and they could have completely nailed it, you know.
Yeah.
And if the problem was that the game just wasn't ready, then give them more time,
Yep.
you know.
They
But,
can't.
like,
The bottom budget. That's all they care about.
You have so few exclusives to your name, and then the one that everybody's hyped on, you're gonna completely ruin the launch the way you did. Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
We were so excited for this game. We were so hyped for this game. E3 PAX, everywhere we were going, the first thing we would do last year and the year before was let's go check out Sea of Thieves. Let's talk to these people. This is going to be huge. We're so excited for it. We were the most hyped.
Yeah,
because
when
for
Price
what
and I
we do, this is the game that should have been the game. And when we played it, it was like within minutes, you're like,
there were
the
so
game?
many things. It was the fact that it was on the Microsoft Store and you had to use the Microsoft Play Finder, and then we had issues even getting together, and some people couldn't even play because of it. And then when we get into the game, it's just boring.
It's boring.
The way they marketed it because at E3, Price and I both rushed to the booth, stood in line for like an hour to get our hands on it. At PAX during our early access hours, we rushed there trying to get our hands on the demo of the game. And the way they set it up was a 4v4. You were fighting another ship. So they were showing the only exciting part of the game. They were like, this is what combat feels like. And it was a ton of fun. But then when you actually get into the game, short of combat, there's nothing to do. It's just empty.
And the combat's always like, it's never, aha, we're coming upon a ship. Let's have like an equal battle. It's always like, oh my God, we're full of treasure. Run, run, run. And then they're like, hey, we got nothing. Let's murder them. And they do. And then you lose.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of grief in that game too. Like
it's dumb.
People go in and they're like, this is how I grief people. Haha, I'm gonna sneak on their ship and put an explosive barrel and kill myself doing it. Yeah. It's just boring and it's annoying. And I know there's a lot of updates to it, but I'm just saying they disappointed the fan base so much. Yes.
Speaking of the updates, the last thing I want to say, then we can move on. Jasmine said there might be some updates to it, but you know what? That doesn't matter. You ruined the goodwill of the gaming community at the launch. There are some games where, you know what, they've really worked at it, and I admire them. Their stick-to-itiveness and tenacity, like
No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky. You know what? That was a small team. It was their first time doing this. You know what? I'm going to give them a mulligan. This is rare. You don't get to release a game that is that poor and then get a second chance.
What I'd like to say about Sea of Thieves is that, Jasmine, you blamed some of this on Microsoft lighting a fire in that. I don't. They had 5 years, more than that, I think. They worked on this for a minimum of 5 years. And for them to release a game where the main crux of what you were supposed to do was, here's a ship, go from point A to point B, get a treasure box, and then come back. That was the main crux of the game.
So 80% is travel.
When you read about
gameplay.
Former developers who worked on the game, when you read stories that they have where they were like, oh, no. They stopped working on the actual game years ago, and they've just been refining the assets in the game. Yeah. So really, they weren't working on a game for years.
Right. To me, they needed to be working on so many, if that game had public quests, and from my understanding, I will say, from my understanding, they have been trying to add more of that, where there is events with krakens, and there's events with there's actual skeleton ships now, AI ships that will attack you and stuff like that.
There's crazy giant sharks.
There needs to be so much more to do in that game, and there's just not.
It's just too little too late. Too little too late.
And that's what alpha is for. We've played some alphas recently, and we're wondering what's the point of alphas now, because it doesn't feel like you're playtesting anymore. It just feels like a way to build hype for a game. That's what alphas are. Traditionally, alphas were the testing phase. So if you wanted that kind of feedback from your community, you should have released an alpha for it earlier before launch, and then put that stuff in the final game. Yeah. Reacting to your community, after the game has been out for 6 months or a year, that's not appropriate. That's not okay.
And I blame Rare on this one. I feel like the talent that we all know and love from Rare must be gone.
They have, or had, I guess,
And that for whatever reason, they just completely were aloof to the fact that they released a game with very little content at the end of the day. It's a very polished game, despite all the major connection issues we had with the Microsoft Store. The game itself runs well and is gorgeous. But
it's pretty to look at. Yeah,
exactly.
Which from what I hear from certain people, that's what they intended to make. A game that
from
was
a video that we read, they talked about the whole point of the game was to make something appealing for Twitch viewers, basically. But anyway,
it's got to be appealing to Twitch streamers too.
This was the thing that we all basically agreed on. I'm curious what else made your lists.
I'll go ahead and give mine because I do need to go run to the bathroom, so I'll just put mine out here really quickly. The ending of Far Cry 5. And I say this knowing that Far Cry has never been known for its storytelling. It's never been known to be great in this arena. This is not new for Far Cry to screw up at the finish line. But Far Cry 5, more than any Far Cry game that I've played over the past several years, really grabbed me. I loved it. I was having so much fun playing the game. I felt like it was poignant. I felt like there was so much about it that was so great. And then you get to the ending, and I'm going to tell you right now, with 100% certainty, it is bad storytelling. Full stop. Like, there are classes you can take on this stuff, and I'm sure that the writers of this game would take up issue with me. I'm sure there are people in the comments who will take up issue with me saying, like, you can't make that statement. I'm sorry. That is horrible storytelling to have an interactive game in which you're supposed to be making choices, and there's the illusion that these choices matter, and then to basically say at the end, haha, JK, that is not good storytelling. Like, it's a hit. It's a punch to the gut. It's like, guess what? It didn't matter anyways. But ultimately, it was garbage. I played it, I reached the end, and it made me hate the rest of the game. Like, I don't ever want to play Far Cry 5 again. And we talk about my anticipated games of the coming year. This is going to be a real interesting one. But I never want to play Far Cry 5 again because I feel like they ruined the story in the finish line. Everything else was so wonderful. It was a great game. It's the best Far Cry game they've ever made. I'll never play it again. Blood Dragon's the only one worth playing. The end. Flip the table. I'll see you later. I got to go to the bathroom.
Bye. All right.
I put in Bethesda.
Just Bethesda?
Just Bethesda. Because, like, I am hyped for the new Elder Scrolls game. I do like Fallout, but the fact that they fucked up so hard this year in terms of just the release of this Fallout 76 game, the fact that they didn't really follow through on any of their promises for the backers, and on top of that, the whole, like, data breach, I am just so disappointed by their actions.
There are a ton of things that I am disappointed with Bethesda and with Fallout. Honestly,
I did like Fallout 76. I did like playing the game, but I am kind of like out of principle. I don't really want to play it, which is really sucky because I bought the game.
I'll mention that as well. When I played Fallout 76, I had fun. There's so many people that got on that bandwagon of just like bashing the hell out of Fallout 76. To me, it's an adequate game, and especially when I'm playing with friends, it is a fun experience.
I'm going to spoil our fan voting a little bit because Fallout 76 is definitely on the list. And the reason why I didn't include Fallout 76 is because I had fun playing it. There's a ton of things wrong with that game. But unlike Sea of Thieves, where I didn't really get a lot of fun outside of the first half hour that we played, I found enjoyment despite the bugs in Fallout 76. My runner-up with biggest disappointment is anything having to do with Hello Neighbor. I played the first Hello Neighbor, and I was completely underwhelmed, and I said, okay, maybe it's just because, it's an alpha, It's an alpha, it's their first, run at this game, and then they tried to parlay off the success of that game by releasing the...
Hide and Seek?
Not just hide and seek, but the one that we played, which was the Secret Neighbor. That's a broken, buggy mess with so many things wrong with it. And then releasing the hide and seek, which I played on stream, and that game also, they're terrible.
Yeah,
they're very, very, very bad games that after a certain amount of flailing around trying to figure out what the hell you're supposed to do, become so frustrating that all of the fun gets sucked out of them. Hello Neighbor, just give it up. The only reason why it's successful is because people try to make funny videos about it on YouTube. I can't do that. I definitely can't find any enjoyment out of it to make it fun or funny or compelling.
I followed when Brian Kakajo was playing him. He would give the alpha each shot, and they would give him a new alpha to play, and he'd try it. And each time it was just like, it's a buggy mess. It's very confusing. If you get caught, you got to redo this all over again. He's like, why would I keep playing this game that's just infuriating? And it's just the thing. It's like Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm going to keep doing this because I hate Five Nights at Freddy's. They are relying on that kiddie, like, cartoony horror to sell this game to children. That's the only reason why this is doing so well, is because children find enjoyment out of this cartoon, scary, like, horror, like, madhouse that this guy is in.
What I will give Five Nights at Freddy over Hello Neighbor is that, like, it's different strokes to different folks. I completely understand if you don't like the genre, you don't like the type of game, but at least it's a game that works. Hello Neighbor is just a game that doesn't work, and especially with the latest game that I played, Hide and Seek, there's fun things about it. There's this fun sort of like puzzle riddle sort of thing that you're supposed to unlock every level, but then they throw in this hide and seek aspect where your kid brother's chasing you around. It's supposed to be like a more lighthearted version of the neighbor chasing you around, but it's so out of place in the type of game you're playing where you're supposed to be able to sit back and say like, okay, how do I solve this puzzle? You never have a time to pause to figure out how to solve the puzzle because there's always this little asshole chasing you around, and then once you get caught, it sets you back to the beginning and sometimes takes away some of the progress that you've made towards trying to solve this puzzle. It's so poorly thought out. I don't understand how they can be allowed to get away with this so many different times.
So, there's a few things that I want to talk about, but I'm going to talk about Just Cause 4.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that Ben added that, and I'm like, yep,
Yeah.
Ash has that same thing too.
Ash will talk about it, yeah.
So the first thing I'll say is that Just Cause series has never been a good game. None of them are good, especially story-wise. They are extremely bad stories. But Just Cause 3, I had a lot of entertainment and enjoyment with because Just Cause 3 gave you a lot of freedom in it to do wacky, wild stuff. And most especially, Just Cause 3 introduced the wingsuit, and they did the brilliant thing of including wingsuit mini missions all throughout its gorgeous map, which were genuinely very fun. That alone, like when Steep came out, I bought the game Steep just to do the wingsuiting in. Like, I love doing wingsuiting in games. It's just really relaxing and fun. And Just Cause 3 did that in a really fun way. Just Cause 4, I was provided a free copy of, and I played it on stream for Stumpmas. They really limited your ability to have like the freedom to do wacky stuff in what you have to do in that game. So the first thing that it does is it sort of like it very much restricts the way that you unlock the map. And so in order to unlock the map, you have to do these missions. And there's really only 2 or 3 different mission styles. There's either you're breaking some people out of prison and then you're taking them to the exit, or you're standing at a point while either you are hacking a thing or an NPC is hacking a thing. And while that's happening, obviously there's just waves of bad guys coming at you. And while you can attempt to do wacky stuff during that, it's just easier to use guns. And the guns are just boring in those types of games. And so the fact that you sort of have to go through and just do essentially a normal third-person shooting game while you're in a sandbox that should be effing crazy is really boring. And then after streaming that game for a couple hours and having a boring time, I finally decided, you know what? Let's do what this game I know I'll have fun with. Let's do wingsuit missions. And they have effed those up so badly. Instead of doing awesome wingsuit things where you fly through checkpoints and it takes you like a couple of minutes to go from like one side of the map to the other, you go through 3 checkpoints within about 20 feet. And it's essentially, the game explains it as you're trying to get a shot for a director. You're trying to get like this crazy sweeping shot. But that's it. It takes you maybe 10 seconds to do those wingsuit missions.
That's not fun. Like, just because you put like a story about a director trying to get a shot doesn't make it fun.
Well, what I will say is, Ash, there is a game I can tell you about that's got great wingsuit-style missions. It's called Spyro the Reignited Trilogy, where you go and you fly around.
Trilogy?
The trilogy, as you fly around as a Spyro, and you go through the stupid thing. I hated those.
Those
But
are
that's
very
what they
hard.
are. It's what they are.
Just looking at Just Cause 3 on Steam, it has a mostly positive review with 34,703 reviews, and Just Cause 4 has a mostly negative as of December 4th with nearly 3,000.
I'm happy to see that's mostly negative. I haven't actually looked at the reviews that much on it.
People, if you look through the reviews, people have the exact same complaints as you do.
Like,
it's just like, it's not fun.
That's good to know that the community is on the same page there, because when I first watched like IGN reviews, everyone was just like, this is a good progression on Just Cause 3. I was like, no, it's not. It's awful. It's so bad. Anyway, so that's my rant on Just Cause 4. It's not a game that I was ever massively hyped for to begin with, but it's a game that I very much enjoyed with Just Cause 3.
Yeah.
And for it to be such a step backwards, and for it does have a major step forwards as far as like the sandbox of what you're able to do in that game. It's just they never request you to do it in the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's things like, this was the biggest example to me. There's a mission where you are taking a car and you are rocket jumping off of things. In your possession, you have things where you can create your own rockets. Does the game ask you to make your own rocket car? No. It's a car that has its own nitrous. And then you will never get a nitrous car at any other point in the game. Like, why?
That's so weird.
Why not use the mechanics of the game to create your missions?
I do always
Like
wonder
with
with games like that, like with huge teams and all this stuff behind them, maybe sometimes they just don't even know that they're making a game. You know, like what's going on?
I feel like there is literally there's a team that's making the amazing sandbox.
Yeah.
It's making all of the crazy, wacky shit that you can do. And then there's a completely separate team that's just making a bare bones story. And none of them are talking to each other.
Yeah.
Well, and there are so many game studios, Bethesda for one, which are more and more being run by like movie executives, or like entertainment executives rather than people who actually understand games and understand what gamers want. So you have a lot of outside interference from the people with the money who are saying like, no. I mean, and I'm guessing here, but I feel like I'm probably onto something. The people who pull the purse string saying like, no, we know what people want.
Right.
Put more of this in it, So this like more entertainment sort of influence on the gaming community rather than actual devs who are passionate about what they do and know what gamers want is starting to seep in to the development process. And yeah,
it's the Blumhouse of video
shout out to
games.
Sony, because Sony has been entertainment for so long, but they still get it. They still understand, okay, we know what this studio's done. We know what these devs have done. They've had success in the past. Let's just trust in them and let them do it.
I'm going to quickly just say one thing. I don't want to spend too much time talking about Fallout 76, but Price, we did talk about Fallout 76 a little bit when you were in the bathroom.
Understandable.
But what we basically came to consensus of is we had issues with what Bethesda did this year, but Fallout 76, we genuinely had some entertainment with it. One of the things that really annoyed me when looking up other lists of biggest disappointments is that universally every single one listed Fallout 76 as its biggest disappointment. And to me, I feel like there's been way worse F-ups in gaming this year.
The only thing I can
Fallout
think of
76.
is that like Fallout would be the highest, the most well-known IP.
It's the biggest marketed
that
one.
failed
Yes.
this year. Like I could see it being that, like, because it'd be like if a bad Halo game came out the same year as Sea of Thieves being garbage, like you would be like, well, Halo was the biggest disappointment because it was mediocre and it's Halo. I could see that. Or like, I'll put it this way. For last year, I was looking through lists, and for last year, a lot of them said like Mass Effect Andromeda was at the top of their list, which I'm like, I get that a lot of people don't like it, but there were way bigger screw-ups last year than Mass Effect Andromeda.
That's a good comparison because I am playing Mass Effect Andromeda right now, and I'm having an okay time.
And I wonder if these outlets are trying to be like the Vox Populi. They're like, this is what we think the majority of people would agree that they were most disappointed with, but we're coming from a more personal place.
Yeah.
What were we most disappointed in with our expectations and when we actually played it? Right.
And I guess that's my issue because, like, when I look at the gameplay of Fallout 76, I feel like it advertised itself as not being a normal Fallout game, which I think a lot of people were disappointed that it wasn't.
Right.
It advertised itself as being this online thing. It has no human no human NPCs that you can talk to. They made that specific. And so many people were frustrated with that.
That was clear.
And also, I expected something a little bit more like Fallout meets Ark, where you could actually like do more things, which were like building in Fallout 4. Like building in Fallout 4 was more fleshed out than building in Fallout 76. Fallout 76, you could just like build like little buildings, but as far as like building separate walls and actually creating these structures and creating houses and communities to live in, as far as I can tell, and as far as I got in the game with playing like 10 hours, that was all absent. So like, I love like survivor builder type games, and this is definitely not one of those type of games.
And as someone who hasn't played it, I will say that's what I garnered from the trailers and everything was that
But I
this
think-
is not a
I
normal
think
Fallout
s-
game,
Yeah.
but it
Yes.
is Rust or Ark or one of
Exactly.
those survival type games. Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think
and it's
so
really not-
many
it's really not.
people did not grasp that. They just saw on the box at the store, oh, there's a new Fallout game, awesome, and
Yeah.
they did not realize it's not the same type of thing.
So if that's
Anyway.
your opinion out there, you're wrong.
And it is actually the opinion of most of our fans, because if you actually look at the list,
So
that we've
let's
got
take a
here,
look at the
biggest
list.
gaming disappointments. Fallout 76 tops the list.
Fair. It's fair.
So Fallout 76, Just Cause 4, Sea of Thieves, and Dynasty Warriors 9. I'll mention with the
I
Dynasty
haven't
Warriors
played
real
Dynasty
quick.
Warriors.
Dynasty Warriors 9 made a ton of lists. I know very little about it. I have not played it.
Yeah.
But I have seen there's a lot of drama about it. Like apparently they did a real bad job. So
As someone who hasn't played Dynasty Warriors too often, like over the past 8 years, I'll say, but I played it a ton back when Dynasty Warriors 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I think even 6. I played all those. I felt like that trajectory was clear. They were getting worse as the years went
Well,
on. Like every
so
new entry, I was like,
if
this
you stopped-
is hot
if-
trash.
if you stopped at 6, supposedly 7 is the best one.
Oh, of course,
from-
of course, of course.
So from what I've loosely read, and from what Steam reviews seem to say, 7 is very, very good.
Okay.
But 9 has apparently been hot trash.
Yeah, according to Game Revolution, the most disappointing games, that's their number 10, Dynasty Warriors. Pokemon Let's Go is their number 9. We
I
Happy
am
Few is number
disappointed
8.
by Pokemon Let's Go.
Yeah, I
honestly.
think a lot of people are. Number 8, We Happy Few.
like
Agony
We
is
Happy
number
Few.
7. State of Decay is number 6. Vampire, number 5. Darksiders 3. I thought Darksiders 3, I thought people
I've heard
actually
people
enjoyed
say
that.
it was disappointing, but like not like in
is number 4.
Not number 4 on a list, kind of
Right.
disappointing.
Battlefield 5 is number 3. Again, I feel like that wasn't that disappointing, right? Sea of Thieves is number 2, and then Fallout 76 number 1.
Yeah. I'll say Pokemon Go or Let's Go, I was disappointing because they got rid of the aspect of actually battling random Pokemon. If you had just kept that in there, I would have keep playing it. But the fact that
That's
it's
silly.
all just you only capture them based on how you play Pokemon Go.
Yeah. I mean, I'll
That
say
was
like
disappointing.
I feel like they didn't necessarily advertise it though that it was gonna
That it was
be
going to be
a
that way,
normal
yeah.
Pokemon. Well, I don't think they advertised that it would be a normal Pokemon game though.
They never showed the aspects of capturing Pokemon.
But, like,
they,
I
never-
feel like-
people just assumed it was going to be Pokemon with Pokemon Go integration where you can just put your stuff in.
And I guess maybe this is me being cynical, but I've been saying it since they came out with the very first Pokemon on Game Boy. I was like, Nintendo's just never going to come out with an actual real Pokemon game, are they? And they continue to prove, no, they have no interest in coming out with a real Pokemon game. It's mobile games, which are handheld games, and then it's kitschy stuff. And Let's Go seems to be just that. It's just the kitschy stuff. It's more of the kitschy stuff. Here's a cute
They
little
are
thing.
supposedly releasing another RPG on the Switch next year.
Please.
Or this year.
I'll believe it when I see it. Game Freak has proved
right.
to me that they do not know what the IP that they have is. Although, Detective Pikachu looks great.
There's a big one coming up next, you guys.
So, the big one is coming up, y'all. Game of the Year.
I have 2. I'm sorry. I can't help it.
I'll start. My game of the year, after a lot of soul searching, I did deviate from my, I'm going to try not to do an early access game, but I had to really look at my library, look at how many hours I've pumped into games, consider how much enjoyment I've got out of all my games that I played this year, and honestly, the game of the year for me is RimWorld.
Yeah,
I knew
It's
it.
just like,
It's a
But
good
that's
choice.
fair.
It's-
That's fair. Yeah.
I mean, it's been in early access for years, but it finally released 1.0 just a few months ago, and this is it's so brilliant, and it's I don't want to say simplicity because it is complex, but from an outsider's perspective, it really looks like a really simple game. But there's so much playability to it, so many
And-
different ways you can play the game.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. We had earlier today, I'd linked that poll, right? About the RimWorld
Of
being
the top-rated games on Steam,
It's
and
the
it is
number
the top-rated
5,
game.
or is it the number 1 for 2018?
number
It's
One.
the number 1.
Number
Okay.
It's
one.
number 1. It
Highest
is the
rated.
number 1 highest rated game on Steam. People who play this game love the game.
Yeah.
And what really makes the game is the Steam Workshop support. And Tynan, who's the dev for this, has been so welcoming of mods in this game because there's so much that people say, I wish this was in the game. And he's like, cool.
Go
yeah,
for
let's
it. Yeah.
put it in the game. And so the mods really make the game. And with that, it allows you to play it in so many different ways. And there is an end game to the game that's kind of underwhelming, but it's so irrelevant because the game is so fun. You never want it to end. You just want to keep playing. How long can I play? How long can I build this colony? How ludicrous can I make it? What kind of insane kind of narratives will develop within the game from like this colonist that I just accepted into my group, and what kind of interactions will they have? What kind of relationships will they develop? I don't see myself stopping playing this game for a long time.
Legs.
This will probably be on the top of my list. Probably my most played game for years to come.
Yeah, that's a good choice there. I have two on my list. One, I'm not going to spend too much time on because we already spent a lot of time talking about it. Red Dead Redemption 2, fantastic game. It came out this year, and of the games that I played this year that were complete experiences that came out and were done when they came out, fantastic. Loved it from start to finish. As a huge fan of the first Red Dead, I feel like a lot of other games were going to have a big competition to try and beat Red Dead for me, just because of the game that it is, and because it's really well made. It's really well polished. My other game, Graveyard Keeper. Graveyard Keeper is an incredible, weird amalgamation of let's make a Harvest Moon game, but let's make it weird and macabre and take all of the little things you normally do in those games and make them gross and weird and creepy. And so it's about embalming bodies and like deriving ingredients from stuff and going and fighting all these things and the interactions with the characters. It's all this weird take on like clearly the person who made this game has a lot to say about the church's involvement in so many things, because that's like at the core of the story. And ultimately you run a church as someone who's like, well, I'm from the future and I don't believe any of this nonsense, but I got to run a church to make money so I can go back to the future. Like that's the game.
Right.
And it's beautiful. It's such a unique and interesting game that I did not expect to happen, and I loved everything about it.
As the odd man out who doesn't really like Stardew Valley, and with this game being so much like a Harvest Moon type game, I love Graveyard Keeper. Could take or leave Stardew, but there's something about Graveyard Keeper that hooked me, so I completely agree.
Yeah, it takes out the relationship component that most of those games have, but then it just adds in such a weird, unique little storyline.
You can still have a relationship with that skull dude.
With Jerry. Yeah.
Gary?
Yeah, Jerry.
But like the whole story is about,
nice
I have
tonight.
to get back to my love, right? It's like, I must return to my love. That's how the story goes. And I just finally recently beat the game. So I know where that goes. But like, it was just so unique. And you know, I love those types of sim games, those types of farming games, whatever. And to make one that every time a new, you know, component popped up, a new gameplay mechanic popped up, a new storyline popped up, I was like, excuse me, what? And there's something about that I loved. So yeah, Graveyard Keeper, that's my other one.
I'm a broken record. It's God of War. I really enjoyed everything about it. Like last year was Horizon Zero Dawn. Those games are perfectly great gameplay, long enough to keep me going. The story is just fantastic, and I am excited for any sequels that come out for it. So yeah, I already listed all my loves for that game. So yeah,
we've talked about it a bunch already, and it totally is worthy of its position. It sounds like I can't wait to play it this year.
Mine is Spider-Man.
I'm so good.
Super stoked that the game that I was most anticipated for last year is my game of the year this year, because I mean, it's just an incredible game.
How often does that happen?
It doesn't happen that often. But yeah, I love that game. It's, you know, I think it's sad to say, but it's a compliment from me when I actually beat a game. I beat that game very quickly. I'm going through the DLCs right now. I'm on the final one. And it's a game that I went into it knowing I would love because it's Insomniac, and it was their previous open world game was Sunset Overdrive, and I love the movement and the way that you roam the world in Sunset Overdrive, so I was expecting more of that. But Sunset Overdrive had a pretty quirky but not great story. It was still somewhat well done, but it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't great. Spider-Man has a great story.
does.
And I just wasn't expecting the presentation of that story from Spider-Man, and I was just very pleasantly surprised from it.
And I will add, as a Marvel boy who has seen every Spider-Man story done a dozen times in different things, I appreciated they didn't immediately go to a Venom storyline. They didn't immediately go to the Green Goblin storyline. Like, these are the storylines that they always rely on, the Lizard, as like, this is where you start as Spider-Man. And they basically went like straight for, you're in the middle of it. You've been Spider-Man for a long time. There's Kingpin. There's this like Sinister Six thing kind of happening. There's all these little bits which it's like, these are middle of the road Spider-Man stories. And they picked that to start with. They showed restraint. And like, that is impressive for a first
It really
outing.
seems like they're trying to make
A
Kingpin
franchise.
the new baddie when it comes to Spider-Man. You know, like
he has
less
been.
Venom, less Carnage. Like we saw it in Into the Spider-Verse, you know.
He's a
It
complicated
wasn't-
character.
He's
a
always
complicated
been
character,
an ever-present villain for Spider-Man. But yeah, when it comes to media, when it comes to like movies and TV and everything else, he's usually in the background, and it's Green Goblin, Venom, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Because for me, like growing up, it was always like, oh, Kingpin is the villain of The Punisher. You know what I mean? It's like, I never really associated Kingpin with, or Daredevil, but I never really associated him with Spider-Man. But it really seems like between this game, between Spider-Verse, that they're trying to like make that the
Can I just say,
thing.
I love his style in Spider-Verse as well. Kingpin's design, just how effing
God, I
huge he
love
is.
his presence.
It's based off a specific comic line.
Yeah.
So there's actually
But even
like
still, his presence is
It's
just
great.
so
It's
overwhelming.
just a giant
it's so
square.
evil. Like, you just look at him, and he's like, bad guy.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
It's great.
I know,
It's
not
great.
to spoil too much, but like the family aspect of Kingpin, I was like, how does he have a wife and kid? And they seem and they seem normal. They seem like normal people.
Well, and if you go back and watch the recently canceled Daredevil season 1 with Kingpin,
Right,
and they do really explore a lot of his relationship with Vanessa and all this kind of stuff, where it's like, I don't know, Kingpin's a really complex, great character, and the fact that they
And
decided to make
and that's
him
why
a
I
huge
love
part of
that
it is
he's
great.
a villain.
Yeah.
And I hope that that's why he remains the villain moving forward, because he is so complex, because he's such a real person.
So, with that, let's see
Yeah,
what
what's
our
the
chat
audience
thinks
say?
about Game of the Year.
Oh.
So,
Game of the year.
we've got Spider-Man, we've got Celeste, we've got Red Dead Redemption 2, Wander Song, God of War, Subnautica, Beat Saber, Moonlighter, and Florence.
and a lot of love for Wonder Song and Subnautica. I
And I'll
can't
say-
speak more highly of those games.
And like you said, Rick, you know, with Subnautica, for us, that's one of those ones that like it falls into that tricky gray zone of it's been out for years and yet just released. But it's been out for a while. So
And-
how do you put that on a list like this when you've been playing it for so long, you know?
I'm going to put on like my critical goggles
Yeah.
here as somebody who really likes Subnautica, but I will say that I love the story of Subnautica, but when the game first released in early access, it was sort of like more of a survival game that didn't have much of a story, which compelled you more to sort of like collect resources and just build the most crazy big insane bases you could. But now that the game has a narrative and it has a beginning and an end, you're more driven to just get to the end,
finish it.
and there's really no real reason to like build and do that kind of stuff. So it feels like it's a game stuck between two genres, and I don't know how to feel about that. On the other hand, Wonder Song is a brand new indie game that released this year and has such a unique gameplay where you're actually playing as this bard, and again, almost like Donut County, where I compared it to Katamari, it feels like almost like a Katamari game, just in the cleverness and the originality of the gameplay, you know? So Wonder Song, if it weren't for RimWorld and how much I played it, it definitely makes my short list.
I like that Moonlighter's up there because that's also a good game.
Great
It's
game.
definitely a dungeon crawler, but they just like the whole like turn the aspects of you're actually down there to collect things to sell. I do like that little store aspect of it because you have to like sell the items that you get. You have to restock your items because people come in, but also the fact that you have to watch your store while you're also selling things. I do like that game. I'm really happy, and I'm happy that there was an update for it recently.
Yeah, I think
I do need to beat it though.
What do you call it? Not Wander Song. Moonlighter. It's an extension of a genre that I've liked for a very long time. I didn't play Moonlighter this year, but I watched Jazzy play it. And there's a game called Reciteer, and there's a couple of other games, Item Shop, things like that, where you do similar things like this. And so watching Moonlighter, I was like, oh, what a cool idea to like really make it like a roguelite version of that.
And it's just so Zelda-y too as
Yeah.
you're going through all the rooms. I liked it.
Very cool game for sure.
I'm going to quickly just sort of give a quick nod towards VR this year. We didn't have a VR section in our list because we didn't necessarily play that much VR for our channel or just like in general. But Beat Saber did release this year, and Beat Saber was fairly groundbreaking in that I think it very quickly introduced people to the concept of VR. It is overwhelmingly the most reviewed game. It is overwhelmingly positive reviewed at 8,870 reviews on Steam.
Wow.
And
It's the best VR game that you can
It's
buy.
in the top 5 for the most well-reviewed games on Steam for this year as well.
And I'll argue that it's going to be the game that we're going to see over the next decade continue to be supported and appreciated by people because it's like DDR in VR.
I think-
You can add more songs, you can add more other components, but at the end of the day, it's just that core gameplay of rhythm in real life. It's a dancing game. It's great.
It does the best job of any VR game that I've seen of very quickly letting people understand the core mechanics. You just swing lightsabers to the rhythm. That's it.
And I feel like VR has been such a novelty up until now, and devs are hard-pressed to figure out a way to make a game that you want to keep playing outside of the first 30 minutes, and you're like, okay, I get it. I'm over this. You know, Beat Saber, they figured out how to make a game that you want to keep playing, you know? Can you think of one VR game where you're like, oh, I want to go play that again?
It does.
I want to, like that game, you want to play it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the thing with VR, that a lot of VR in general just suffers from the fact that you will get fatigued after a while. So having a game that has different gameplay but can be played in short bursts like Beat Saber is great.
Well, the eye strain and mental fatigue that comes along with VR is being beaten out by physical fatigue. So it's like when you're doing all this active stuff and you feel like, okay, I need to take a break, you don't reach the point of like headache that you kind of get when you play VR for 2-3 hours straight. You're not feeling good. It doesn't matter how not nauseous you get, whatever, you will eventually get a headache. Beat Saber, you play that for 30 minutes to an hour and you're exhausted because you just did a huge workout. And so you get yourself out of VR just because you're beating yourself to the punch. So it kind of avoids the biggest issue of VR, which is that kind of like, nausea and everything else that comes along with it,
And I guess the last thing that I'll mention on that topic, the game is still in early access, but I do want to give a nod to Puppet Fever because I think it is one of the only games in VR that does co-op appropriately. Like most
That could be a great party game.
Yeah, most other VR co-op games don't do it well. Like you either have to do some split screen thing that the rest of the people are seeing, or you have to do something weird. That game just does it super well, super simply, and the concept of it is just very well executed.
We need more asymmetric VR games, and that's the best one.
That's the best one. So I'd love to see more games like that, and I'd love to see that game get more updates.
For sure.
So, with that, we're moving on to what the fuck gaming moment of the year.
WTF, man. I feel like a lot of us will probably be in agreement with this one. Maybe.
Depends.
Why don't you start us off, Rick?
Mine is, there's a few. I have a runner-up that I'll discuss, but Telltale going under.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one.
It's insane. I mean, there's so many layers of the insanity. When we heard that Telltale's going under, we were like, oh no,
Shocked.
Telltale.
Yeah.
They've made so many great things, and they had so many things in the pipe. Like, how could this happen? And then they started making claims like, don't worry, like, we're still going to be releasing these things. And then, like, information starts to trickle out. Devs that are being laid off are talking about their experience working for Telltale and how they were telling the heads of Telltale, like, the model that we have is unsustainable. Like, they were warning them of the decline of their own studio, and the devs were just not listening. Like, they were on a sinking ship, and they were like, no, everything's fine. So tons of people lost their job. You find out that financially they were just completely inept.
Yeah.
You know? And then you start to hear stories about like the existing IPs and how you're never going to get any follow-ups. Like you're never going to get any resolution to these games that just have loose ends. They started publishing games inexplicably on platforms outside of PC. For example, 7 Days to Die was released on PS4, and it turns out that Telltale were the publisher. Well, guess what? Now, PS4 version of 7 Days is gone.
Never gonna have.
They no longer have it.
Yeah.
Like the Fun Pimps who are developing 7 Days to Die, and I have my own bone to pick with them, but this has nothing to do with that. They just lost it. They lost their chance of like, and I don't know why. I don't know the legality, but apparently Telltale just owned that.
Yeah.
And now 7 Days is screwed. 7 Days launch on PS4 is just gone. So there's
they-
so many rippling repercussions of Telltale going down that it's just like, it's so shocking that that's a studio that is so well known by PC gamers can be run so poorly.
Well, if you look at the data and stuff that they released of the sales, I don't know if it was them who released it. I think it was aggregated by others that show clearly that, like, other than The Walking Dead and then to a lesser extent Wolf Among Us and then the follow-ups to The Walking Dead, the Telltale mainline games were on a clear low trajectory. They were not making any money.
Steep low trajectory.
And I think that this is one of those situations where you kind of go, The Walking Dead was way more successful than they thought it could be. And they thought, aha, we're grabbing on to the bottom of a trend that we're going to ride to the top, and this is going to be a new era of storytelling. Like, they were like, let's get all the licenses, let's get all this stuff. And when you look at the actual data and the actual trajectory, it's like, no. You had one runaway hit, and everything else was riding on that success. And if you had, instead of going like full bore, let's release 4 of these a year, 5 of these a year, I don't know how many they were releasing, but like so many, like Tales from the Borderlands and all this kind of stuff, where it's like you're picking up licenses. Game of Thrones. Remember the Game of Thrones one that they did?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, you don't, because it was garbage. Don't act like you remember it. Like all these games that they're releasing, that it's like, no. You're overwhelming us with so many of these that none of us want to play them.
Well,
give me a year
how could
or
they
two
not
in between,
diversify
and
their
I will
genre?
be excited for it.
Like they're stuck on this this interactive storytelling genre. It's like, how are you not exploring other games?
Well, and
how are you not exploring like different like action games, RPG games? You know, like different types of games. You had one success with Walking Dead, and you're trying to emulate that success and failing each time. And it's almost like the sunken cost fallacy. Where you're just like, well, we've put too much money into it now. Let's one of these, or what's the fallacy? The gambler's fallacy, basically.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm bound to have a hot hand because I've been on a losing streak so far.
No. I'll say, and well, Jassie's leaving now, so she can't comment on this. But there were some gems in there. The Batman game that they did was actually pretty good for a Batman game. Like, it was a very different thing, and it fit well with the genre. It's like they invented an evolution of the classic point-and-click adventure that was really interesting. This walk around in the environment and do the stuff, but it's still just a point-and-click adventure with some quick-time events. I loved Wolf Among Us. Obviously, The Walking Dead was great. And I think that if they hadn't forced so many of these games down our throats so quickly, then we would have appreciated what they did put out. Because, like, they released a Guardians of the Galaxy game. I am the primary recipient of that game. I'm the one that they're trying to get to buy that game.
Yeah.
I had no interest in it. I was not interested at all.
And that's the thing. Like, the games that they released, by and large, were good. People weren't buying them because they were bad. People were buying them because they were sick of them.
Yeah.
You know? And they need to do both of those things. Not release so many at once, and they also need to diversify, because when you're not releasing one of those types of games, you need to be releasing something else, because you got to pay your staff, right? So, like, it's so poorly conceived. I just can't believe that a studio would be allowed to do that. What were their board of directors thinking?
Right.
Like, a board of directors who's supposed to be in charge of, like, making sure that they're making money. Did they not have one?
And I want to make it clear that, like, as far as the developers and everybody involved in making those games, the art teams, all them, we're not dogging on them. They
No.
thought they were in the clear. They thought, this is what we're supposed to be making. We're going to make great games. We're excited for it, everything like that. It's the people at the top who are pulling those strings and making those decisions. They were being idiots. They were just like, they did not know what they were doing.
Right, exactly. It's the people with the money.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the people making the game. It was the people signing the paychecks who were
And
making terrible decisions.
I guess what's strange to me as well is that, like, if you look at their, earnings per game, and it's clearly just on a downward slope since the first Walking Dead. I don't understand why businesses allowed them their IP, I guess, in the first place.
Yeah, that's actually another good point. Did they not release that kind of information?
No.
And if so, how was it that these people who held the licenses weren't asking for that kind
Now,
of
here's the thing that probably happened. They locked in all of those licenses the year that they released The Walking Dead. I'm imagining they released that game. It was a runaway success. They got up all these licenses and were just like, let's make all these games. Let's just make
that
them
wouldn't
all
surprise
happen.
me. Yeah.
So beyond Telltale, because that was my pick as well. The other one that I want to mention, just because I find it surprising, ironic, I guess, is that I would say anyway that Sony had an amazing year. But I would also say that Sony had one of the worst E3 shows I've ever seen.
Yeah, they
And
had like
come
an
to find out-
Did they have a
experience.
show?
They didn't have a show.
Well, they had a
the thing is-
pre-show, and their pre-show had the guy with the flute. It had the fact that the audience had to change locations all the time.
Well, because I didn't realize this, but because they didn't actually present at E3.
Right.
That's the reason why.
Yeah.
Like it was the first year that
Well-
they didn't present at E3, so they were trying to do their own thing outside of E3, and it was
everyone
complete
does,
disaster.
like Xbox does, like all of those big companies have their pre-show before E3, but theirs was awful.
Sure. But also Xbox, like they present at E3.
Well,
you know?
they show
So-
their games at E3, but all the conferences that we watch, it's the only part of E3 that the public ever sees is these
Yeah.
pre-shows.
And I feel like part of that maybe was a consequence of the fact that like the people at Sony were like, we're not ready, just ad lib and cut to the people at the pre-show. And the pre-show people are like, hi.
Yeah.
Let's talk about video games.
Well,
and sweating, and then they're like, cut back to Sony. And Sony's like, we're not ready yet. Cut back to the pre-show.
Well, I mean, yeah. If you just look at any of the other conferences, even the Bethesda conference was amazing. I'd say that Bethesda probably had the best conference of that year.
Yeah.
Well, 'cause
Xbox
they
had
put
a
out-
really
And Andrew
good one.
WK play.
Elder
I was stoked.
Scrolls up on there, but done. I'm done. That's all I needed. Thank you.
And then, like, Xbox's one was actually really well done, even though at the end of the day, I didn't care about any of the games they showed. They had a very fluid and well done presentation.
Yeah.
Sony's was just remarkably bad. And the fact that they had such a great year and so many good games to talk about.
I mean,
I
the
think-
fluke guy.
I
Come
think
on.
what happened was the 2017 show that they had was more of like an experience that the entire concert hall had experienced.
Yeah, the
they had-
2017 one was so good.
They had
Yeah.
like the snow falling, they had all these environmental effects happening, all the lighting, the sound. They're like, that was great. The audience loved it. Let's do that again, but let's make it more unique. And so
And let's do it in 3 locations.
Let's do it in 3 locations, and
we'll
like-
take a break between each
yeah,
set.
and the problem is that they made a unique experience for the press and anybody that was at the show. Watching from home, it was a nightmare. It was
Yeah.
such
Oh,
a
yeah.
nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
And I
It
felt
was the
so
worst.
embarrassed for Sony because like they could have done this and had another show at the same time.
You know what, though? I'll give them a pass, though, because we talked about how good they are
No,
at publishing games.
They are
so,
so
you know what?
good. And that's why I find
gonna
it
get- I'm
ironic.
gonna give you
deliver.
this pass.
They deliver.
Yeah.
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 And I want to point out because Fire made an interesting comment in chat there saying people were pretty angered about The Last of Us 2 being hyper violent as well. I will put an asterisk on that because I don't think that trailer was hyper violent. I think the trailer was made in a way that lulled you into a feeling of comfort and then hit you with the violence, unlike every other trailer for every other game, Gears of War, and literally any game. Pick any
was gonna say,
major game, hyper violent. But
I remember some pretty good violence in Last of Us 1.
No,
So-
yeah,
Well,
those
that's what I
games
was
are
gonna say.
hyper violent. They are
There was no
violent.
reason. Yeah, there was no reason to believe that it wouldn't be
But-
a
Yeah.
violent
But
game.
the thing that got everyone was that scene of it's Ellie and her girlfriend, and they're like about to kiss, and it's like this. Or they do kiss, and it's this whole like touching thing, and then it cuts right to like Ellie stabbing someone, right? And it's like, did you play The Last of Us? Because that game was 50%. There's weird zombie things that I have to run from or hide from or kill, and then 50%. People I have to violently murder because if I don't,
like that,
they're gonna do it to me. And every single time, it's like, what's his name, Joel? Like grab you and like wrestle you to ground and like, like it's not just like a quick little like. It's violent.
That whole scene that takes place in the first game, in that restaurant where Ellie's being pursued by that crazy dude. You know, like there's so much creepy, violent stuff in that. Yeah, it's definitely the juxtaposition, and I can see why it would be unsettling, but I don't necessarily think it's fair to complain about
And
that.
so if anyone's complaining about it, it's like, you don't know the game you're talking about.
Yeah.
You just don't.
Or they didn't play the first game.
Yeah, you didn't play it, so you don't have legs to stand on. It'd be like someone complaining about, Overwatch has these really interesting characters that are really like colorful and over the top, and they have great voice acting.
Then they
I'm so
fight
irritated
each
by
other.
that.
What's that about?
I'm so irritated by that. It's like,
Jazzy,
there's orcs in WoW. Did you know this?
Yeah. If Sonic the Hedgehog all of a sudden turns super violent, then I'd be like, okay.
I mean, the movie
Shadow,
could be
bro.
like that. The
Shadow's
movie
part
could
of
be
the
like
Bullet
that.
Club. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly. Right, like Shadow blasts, like Tails face off or something, Then I'd be like, okay, feel free to complain, Internet. Feel free.
Jazzy, we talked about Telltale. We talked about Sony. Did you have any others? Moments of the year?
Mine was Ninja at Times Square.
Yeah.
Like, I understand why they did it. I understand he's a big name, that he wants to, that they're trying to move, like, because our generations into video games, the new generations in the video games, the money is in Twitch, it's in YouTube, it's streaming, it's doing all this stuff. I understand why he was there.
Yeah.
I don't understand what he was doing on the stage, because it didn't seem like he was talking about games. He was more like trying to be himself, but also it was weird. And then they showed the video of him trying to teach people how to floss.
And I'll say about
was
that.
so cringy, and just
It
like the
was.
fact that like they had obviously stage people flossing in the crowd, but the rest of them were not doing it. They were just standing there like.
And
Who
that
are
guy
you?
that guy had some challenges already. Like apparently it was like super wet in Times Square.
Yeah,
People
no,
were
it was
miserable standing in the
raining,
rain as it was.
That's one of those things.
Like,
I don't think it was his fault. That's a
No,
Times
no.
Square problem,
No,
but it's
it wasn't
embarrassing
his
for
fault.
him.
It was
nonetheless.
embarrassing, and it was
Yeah.
just more of the fact that I'm still surprised that they were like, let's get you at Times Square. They could have got him anywhere else, and he could still have had a better show.
Well,
but it's New Year's.
I feel like well, it is New Year's, but I feel like if they just would have done a Ninja is streaming from his place on New Year's, that it would have been 100 times better, because he would have been in his natural environment.
Yeah.
And it just would have been so much more organic.
It's just the fact that they take like two different worlds and try to cram together that don't really go together, and the fact that he has to be like on point, he has to be on TV, he has to like actually be a host. It just seemed
The
weird.
only reason, like the main reason I can see for Twitch saying like, you know what, we want to get you in Times Square, is because they want to make him more of a household name.
Yeah.
They
Yes.
want to introduce him
and
to
that's
other
what it is.
people
They-
outside of his Twitch
That's the
audience.
reason why.
Otherwise, he should have just streamed
They put
to
him
his
in
Twitch audience on Twitch.
Like Jazz said,
To
they put him in a
me-
host position, and being a host has nothing to do with what we do on Twitch. Has nothing to do with like what the skill set of a Twitch streamer would be. But that's what happens when you move into that realm of I am big in entertainment, so they're gonna put me in all these positions. Get ready to see Ninja on random cooking shows on Food Network and all kinds of stuff. It's gonna happen. And
I mean, he's pretty on like Jimmy
Yeah.
Corden and like.
So,
yeah,
okay,
So
hold
just
on.
get ready for that.
Hold on.
So-
Yeah.
Yes, it's weird seeing him do this, but that's not the WTF moment of that event, in my opinion. The WTF moment was the fact that Twitch decided to advertise in front of other average Joe streamers the fact that they should go watch
That's
Ninja's
true. I
Times
forgot
Square
about that
show.
too.
Okay, well
I
that's
forgot
dumb.
about that point too.
That's dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were actively advertising on other people's streams, just being like, "We're doing this. Go watch his streams."
Stop watching this
know.
stream.
Would they
Stop
pop into
watching-
chat? Or
They
would
wouldn't
add
pop in the
those?
chat. It
No,
would be the
like the
advertisement that
ads
you
that would play.
saw
Before you
saw
jumped
your
in.
stream.
I did forget about that. Yes, that was
Yeah.
also
All right,
pretty.
well, that's
That was
bullshit.
pretty messed up.
That's bullshit.
And
There's
then-
There's another Ninja FT.
There is
WTF
another
that I'll
Ninja
talk
thing that I
about.
think we should address.
That Fire brought up.
Bryce, what do you got? What do you got?
So for me, I couldn't really think of anything off the top of my head because like I was just quickly going through and doing this stuff this morning. So for me, it was just Atlas in general.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because
that's a good
as a
one.
longtime player of Ark, it took me about a half a second to see the UI of Atlas and see this is Ark, and then to hear the stories that this was supposed to be an Ark add-on or DLC that they then decided to like, oh, let's just make it its own game. Shocker, considering they rushed Ark out to full release at the end of last year. Even though they're like, we're going to continue to make content, we're going to continue to do all this. To me, it sounds like they were working on something that there was going to be the next DLC for Ark. Extinction didn't do as well as they maybe hoped, and they were like, you know what? Standalone, because we can charge $60 for this and pretend that it's a different game, and people will buy it because they're dumb. And not to throw shade on our good friends who are continuing to play Atlas for some dumb reason. But it's just a bad Ark mod without dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And for me, the only appeal to Ark are the dinosaurs. So you take them out, what is it? It's a garbage survival game that has never been balanced. And why would you play it? So Atlas, to me, is the biggest WTF because I watch it and I go, why are people playing this? What is
Atlas
the
go to
reason
jail.
that anyone bought this? Why?
So I want to go back to my runner-up WTF, and since we were just talking about Ninja, my runner-up is another Ninja WTF. Ninja won't stream with women.
That's just like,
And I think that this should actually be talked about a lot more, and he should continue to get criticism
Give him crap
for this
for it.
because the reasons why he's given for not streaming with women is such fucking bullshit.
Yeah, it's
all right. Like
such an insecure thing to do.
yeah.
Like okay.
It's
Here's what he
misogyny and
says.
sexism.
I wanted to take a
under
moment to
those
address the discussion around the article that came out, yada, yada, yada. I want to make clear the issue I'm addressing is online harassment and my attempt to minimize it from our life. He doesn't want to stream with girls because he wants to minimize online harassment from his life. How is streaming with girls going to cause more online harassment than the biggest Twitch streamer in the world is already getting? What are you trying to say? What are you trying to imply that a female stream, what kind of drama or harassment do you think is going to be brought to you by including girls in your streams as well? You're the biggest streamer and you're cutting off half of the world's population. Mm-hmm. You're a prick.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. As somebody who's trying to champion inclusiveness and positivity in your streams, screw you. You're a hypocrite.
He's failed. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's no excuse. I don't care. Just come out and say, you know what? I don't want to make my wife jealous if that's what it is. But don't try to say it's because I want to minimize online harassment against me and my family. That's a cop-out.
These are the same excuses given by businesses that would like to restrict who they have to sell to, who they have to work with, who they have to hire. They give these very same things. Well, oh, it would cause us issues, or oh, it's just going to rock the boat, or oh, whatever. I mean, this is the exact thing. And the thing is Ninja's the kind of guy who I will say I appreciate him being not PewDiePie, who's out there in the public space, not saying a whole bunch of horrible stuff, but implicitly doing the same things through inaction or through refusing to do things. So it's a bullshit statement. It doesn't mean what he says it means. From what I've read, it has everything to do with the fact that yes, it's him trying to like maintain his relationship with his wife in a way that's like positive. So whatever, it's your relationship, it's your thing to do, and it is up to you who you want to stream with. Right. But for you to come out and say, I will not stream with women, that is the issue. Yeah. What if the next biggest streamer, what if someone comes out who's bigger than Ninja, who is a woman, and is like, I would like to play Fortnite with you, and is the biggest Fortnite player in the world, right? If is bigger than Ninja, comes out, and they're like, I would like to play with Ninja. Then is Ninja going to suddenly turn around and say, yeah, I'll do it? Of course he will, because he's lying when he says the reason why he wouldn't do it. He's not doing it because it's convenient. Because it's convenient to not do so.
So I'm going to segue this. Speaking of misogyny and Bryce brought up businesses.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Our fans, our chat has listed a few, and one of them we have not talked about. So they listed Telltale shutting down. They listed Sony E3. The other one listed is the Riot and Rockstar ethical issues.
Riot.
So
Riot makes
Riot
us so angry.
especially was sued this year for very sexist behavior.
Good. Take all their money. Fuck them is what I say. That's my 1F.
And I'll say that that's not something new. I've heard about that from Riot for
From the
years.
beginning.
But
From
these
the beginning.
these lawsuits are new, and man, I hope they take them to the cleaners because.
Yep.
By the way, just quick insert here because I didn't talk about it, but I think that I'm boycotting Bethesda for a while because while there is sexual harassment in the industry and riots being exposed, there is a head of the board of directors of
Bethesda.
Not Bethesda, it's the other ZeniMax.
ZeniMax.
Okay.
Which
Leslie Moonves,
Les Moonves.
who
Yeah,
was
Les
the
Moonves.
former head of CBS, who has serious allegations of sexual harassment against him. And as far as I know, he is still on the board of directors of Bethesda. So if you guys are going to put your money where your mouth is and not support Riot for their sexist behavior, then I encourage you guys all to take a stance against Bethesda. And let's get Les Moonves off of the board of directors of
say that-
ZeniMax, huh?
Look at Bethesda's board of directors because it's insane.
It's insane, yes.
Look, there's a certain dude with a name that starts with T and sounds like Dump at the bottom of that list. That should tell you everything you need to know.
I don't know anything about that guy, so I'm not going to try to judge a person based off their name. There's a lot of assumptions I can make, but what I do know is that Les Moonves is currently being investigated for very serious allegations and a lot of very credible allegations.
Yeah.
So I say, you know what, Bethesda, you should probably do something.
If you don't fire that guy, we'll fire you for making video games, and we will seize the means of Elder Scrolls from you. That's what I'm saying.
Mentioning Rockstar's ones though, they did have. It was very back and forth on whether or not the news was being overblown or not. I'll say at the end of the day, it did seem the news came out that people were working an insane amount to get Red Dead Redemption 2 out.
Yes.
There was an article going around saying people were working 100-hour weeks. Then it sort of came out that was like, no. Just this guy that was the head of his team was saying that he was working 100-hour weeks and that maybe his team was, but like they weren't required to. And then it was like, no, but like they were. And
that one is less cut and dry. There are plenty of people who work for Rockstar who say like, I worked a lot of hours because I made the decision to, but they never forced me to. And then there are a lot of people who say like, no, we were forced to, but because we worked on this team. And not trying to say that it's right or it's not right, but it's also not as clear whether or not everybody in Riot is being forced to do it, whether or not they were specific or Rockstar, whether they were specifically being told you need to, or whether they just maybe felt pressured to. Again, not right, but still seems pretty questionable.
And I'll put this out there as like a little asterisk on that, because what I will say is that I do think that the whole conversation around that does center in on something that I think is a problem in business in general, in the gaming industry in particular, when it comes to those gray areas between, well, what was I chose to do 100 hours of work versus I was told to do 100 hours of work. Because if you imply that overworking yourself is somehow a good thing to do, or like, well, this is what you do when you're going above and beyond, or you'll get the promotion if you really push yourself to the edge. You're forcing people to behave in that way. Don't act like it's a choice that you're giving them. You're saying, here's the thing. Here's the minimum that you have to do, which is a normal human being's work week. And then if you don't hit this amount, you might not get that promotion. So what are you going to do? You're going to work 80 hours or 90 hours or 100. And then when people ask you, were you forced to? Well, you can't say you were, but you can't say you weren't. And so overall, just don't herald overwork as something that is something you should respect. We all overwork. It's not a respectable thing to do. It's just something that you do because you have to. But don't act like it's the thing that makes you a better person. What would make you a good person?
Firestar mentions in the chat.
Yeah.
Firestar mentions in the chat that Rockstar also has allegations of inequality, like gender pay gaps with women
Being paid
employees,
less, I
and
assume.
it's even beyond the pay gap, the typical pay gap. So I just looked it up, and actually, like the typical pay gap for Rockstar based out of Edinburgh, Scotland, is about 34%, and they're getting paid about 60% less than men are getting paid.
Wait, 60% less?
Yes, at Rockstar.
Not they're making 60%, but they're making 40%.
Let me actually tell you what it says. Rockstar gender pay gap.
Because I think the gender pay gap is generally 70-ish%. And
No. At the studio based in Edinburgh, the average hourly rate for women is 64% lower than for men.
64%
lower. Is
lower.
34%.
So they're making 30. No, 36%.
So that is significant. That is huge.
That's gross.
And this needs to be a persistent topic for us gamers, is holding these studios accountable. And I think that there's been a lot of discussion between what's happened with Riot, what's happened with Rockstar, what's happened with Telltale, is that developers need a union. There was actually a really good tweet that somebody made regarding Bandersnatch when they were saying, is it a game? Is it a show? And they said it's a game. It's a show, and I'll tell you why. Because the writers
are in a union. That's a great.
That's why it's a show.
And what I'll say is to piggyback off of what you're saying, Rick, is because we're dogging on a lot of huge companies who are making horrible decisions. I'd like to build up a couple of companies that are making really great and inclusive decisions.
Nice.
Minomi Park, who makes and produces Slime Rancher.
And
Go and follow Nick Popovich on Twitter. He is the head of Minomi Park, and whenever you see him tweeting about their business, whenever you see him tweeting about their practices, it's always, we won't let people work more than 40 hours. We will force you to go on vacation.
And
we will
a
do
shout
all
out
of
to
these
them
things.
as well for being so responsive to the Telltale shutdown as well. They were very upfront, like, we will hire you.
Immediately,
We
Nick
need
was like,
you.
are you at Telltale and you're looking for a job? Send us a message. We will give you a job. So they're doing all the things that are so good. Kit Fox Games as well, Firestar. Exactly. Kit Fox is similarly inclusive in their hiring practices, very transparent in making sure that you know that everybody's getting paid well and is getting the fair shake. It's look to indie devs to find these things. The Monster Prom team, I can't remember what the name of the company is, same deal. Very inclusive hiring practices, really great revenue shares, all those types of things. They're being responsible. So look to young indie companies when you want to see what's the future of gaming. Because these huge corporations, they'll continue to produce games, but the people who actually care about the industry will ignore them. And it'll just be shovelware on a phone that no one cares about unless it's an advertisement for a movie or something like that.
Or for Ninja on Twitch.
We just got banned from Twitch. Rick, don't you know we're not supposed to say negative things about other Twitch streamers? That's in the TOS, and we should probably take it out of here.
Let's move on to a positive topic, y'all. All right, let's
it.
talk about our favorite burrito of the year.
Yes, let's do it.
I still maintain the Me Burrito from the Oregon Burrito from Me Burrito is the best.
Nice.
Good.
Though
Nice.
Javier's, I've been growing on Javier's.
I've got a controversial choice. Because some of you may say, is it a burrito? I say, yay, the best kind of burrito, a fried burrito. I've been munching on some chimichangas. It's a chimichanga from Muchas Gracias. I don't care. It's a burrito, man.
It's not.
All right?
That's why it's got a different name.
That chimichanga from Muchas Gracias, smothered in red sauce. Yeah, baby.
Rick, here's
All
my
right?
question. Have you had a burrito from Muchas Gracias?
And you know what I've said?
What?
Yeah, I have. They're great. And then I said, you know what would make this better? If you fry it
Sure.
and smother it in red sauce.
No. That's fine. That's fine. Okay? But legitimately, compare that Muchas Gracias burrito, not the fried one, just a regular Muchas Gracias burrito. Is that the best burrito you've had?
Yeah, and then it got better.
Okay, that's fine. All right, fine. Then Muchas Gracias wins. Because the thing is...
I was like, how can this get better?
Yeah.
And it did.
That's fine. Because I will agree.
Muchas Gracias is making burritos better.
Chimichangas are great. And also when you said smother it in red sauce, now it's a chimichanga meets an enchilada. Because when it comes to Mexican food, it's all the same ingredients
that's just a wet
presented in
burrito.
different ways.
This is a wet burrito.
Yeah, exactly. It's a wet burrito.
All right, so
exactly.
but not when it's fried. Not when it's fried.
Well, the frying was the icing on the tortilla, friend.
Ooh, now we're talking dessert burritos all of a
This
sudden.
is no.
God, Jazz, mine is Javier's bacon breakfast burrito. Javier's was new for me this year. And the reason that I elevate it so much is that for those of you that are like, why are we talking about such specific places? Javier's is like a hole in the wall. It looks like it was an old laundromat or something like that.
It's been there for so long, and I've always ignored it.
Javier's is not a place that I would ever willingly go to until Anna drug me and Jasmine there at 2:30 a.m. and it was so good.
It was so good.
Yeah.
To clarify, an organ burrito is I know it has steak in it, but it's bacon, potatoes, steak, fresh onions, and cheese.
Yeah.
So damn good.
That's good.
So damn good.
Price, what is your burrito of the year?
Pepino's chicken burrito. Yeah, it's good.
Pepinos?
What's that?
Pepinos.
Pepinos. I've
Yeah,
never had them.
It's kind of a local Portland chain. There's 3 or 4 of them around. There's one over here by me. There's one on the east side that I know of. And, it's just a standard, straightforward Mexican burrito. It's good. The end.
By the way, I just want to say the definition of chimichanga is a deep fried burrito. And it refers to it as a deep fried burrito.
Right.
So there's a burrito in there.
And
it's just
the
surrounded by a
definition
crunchy
of
shell.
an ice cream sandwich is probably ice cream sandwiched between 2 pieces of some kind of
No.
sweet bread.
Because this isn't a chimichanga burritoed between a tortilla. It is a burrito, just of the deep fried variety.
Okay, so then is a deep fried Twinkie a Twinkie when you ask what is the best Twinkie?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, fine. Then chimichanga's a burrito, so that's fine.
Yay!
Chat, I'm very disappointed
Are you
in
kidding me? Of course,
Chat.
fried Twinkie's the best kind of Twinkie.
You have
Sounds so gross.
you've not told us your favorite burritos, Chat.
I just want to
What?
say, I just feel like that's one of those
What?
hair splitting things. We're talking about burritos, and then you suddenly we're gonna add a new thing. Oh, how about an iced burrito or a dessert burrito? It's a different preparation. It's a different thing.
Price, if I had a dessert burrito this year and if it was good, I definitely would have listed it. All right?
And
You
I
can be
would have
damn
had
sure.
equal issue with you doing so because every year we always do this where all of us always argue over what is X food.
But the technical
Here's X food. And we go and look at the definition
technical-
and you guys are like, let's stretch it. Why? Because Ash
No,
likes to
no.
send me into fits.
I'm not stretching the definition. The definition is literally chimichanga is a burrito.
Fried.
That's literally the definition.
Fried.
That's
Prepared
fine, but it's still a
differently.
burrito.
It's prepared
It's still a
differently.
burrito.
And lasagna is pasta prepared in a baking dish.
That is true.
But if I asked you
That's
what was your
true.
favorite spaghetti,
Well, I mean, if you lasagna the spaghetti.
see, this is why I hate you guys sometimes. This is why I hate you guys sometimes. Because you love to just be contrarian because you can.
All right, we got one more thing before we gotta go.
Go to hell. All
One
of
more
it.
thing.
A couple
Stumpt
of
is
people.
over. Happy 2019.
Rick listed chimichanga. Katie Hobbit listed New York burrito. I'm curious what a New
You
York
even
burrito
spelled
is now.
chimichanga wrong. It's
Chimichanga.
It's spelled chimichanga.
Chimichanga.
That's how I say it.
I want a chimichanga now. All right, y'all. Let's move on. What is our most anticipated game of 2019?
I know what yours going to say, Ash.
Yeah, so I'm going to kick it off with
go ahead.
Anthem. I said it last year.
Yep.
I'm going to say it again this year because it is coming out.
Yep.
And it is actually coming out at the... Technically, you can start playing it at the end of this month, but it comes out very early in February that everyone can play it. But yeah, Anthem. I can't wait. It's made by BioWare. It's 4-person co-op. They don't even have PvP plans, so everyone
That's
that's
what makes me so excited. That's what makes
everyone
me
that's
so
like,
excited.
this just looks like Destiny. No, it's not Destiny. It is a 4-person action game made for co-op, and it has a Diablo-esque loot system. And they're not even caring about PvP. That's what ruined Destiny for me. I thought Destiny had a great story. It had an okay story, but it was fun. But at the end of the day, that game is just about PvP. That's all. That's the only thing that motivates you to continue to play it. And I just didn't care about its PvP. This game looks so good. So I cannot wait to play it.
I'll pick off there because I have several on my list.
Okay.
But Anthem was on my list. And I knew you were going to say it, so I put it at the end of my list. I'll quickly say Empires of the Undergrowth, because hopefully it'll actually release
Best
this
of
year.
luck to
Because you're
you.
obligated at this point.
I still think it's a great game. I replayed it again recently. I was like, it's still great. I'm still glad I got it. Another one though, building off of what I had talked about earlier, Far Cry New Dawn. I feel like the new Far
There's
Cry.
already a new game?
It's you know how they often will do like a follow up right after they release a new one, where like Blood Dragon or Far Cry Primal, those come right after the numbered ones. So Far Cry New Dawn is a literal sequel to Far Cry 5. It's not a new Far Cry. It's after the events of Far Cry 5. So, spoilers, but if you've seen the trailer for Far Cry New Dawn, and if you heard me yell about it earlier, Far Cry 5 ends with a nuclear blast going off in Montana, just as Father predicted, just as this crazy guy you were sent to stop predicted at the beginning of the game. Why I hate that game.
Never playing this game now.
It's dumb. It's garbage. And this takes place like 30 years later or like 25 years later, something like that. So the nuclear winter, but here's the thing that makes it better than Fallout, or different than Fallout. The nuclear winter has passed. So Fallout takes place during nuclear winter, always.
It's Stalker.
It's not Stalker. This is during what they call New Bloom, right? Or a Super Bloom, which is what would happen after all life has been eradicated from a place, and then new life fills the gaps. So
Right.
it's a beautiful pastoral landscape. There's tons of bright colors, and it's a post-apocalyptic.
I have to correct you.
What?
Fallout does not take place during a nuclear winter.
Well, okay, so it takes place during a landscape that is ravaged and has not fought
Yes.
back. All right, yeah.
It's just that unrealistically, nothing grows.
Nothing grows back. Exactly. So this is the more realistic version of that, which is you have nuclear winter, which stops all life from growing or whatever like that, and then you have what they call super bloom. And so what this is Far Cry 5, but on steroids, where it's like there's, creatures out in the woods, but they're all crazy mutant monsters. Like the cougars now have like crazy spikes and stuff on them. And like instead of fighting against this rogue terrorist group in the middle of Montana, it's like, Mad Max style gangs running around in the pastoral landscapes of Montana. Like it's so weird and bonkers that I'm hyped for it. At the same time, it is a sequel built out of something that I think is trash. So I have to be anticipating it because I have no idea where it's going to go. Blood Dragon, exactly. And I love Blood Dragon. It's one of the greatest games ever made. So one of my games that I am super hyped for, Far Cry New Dawn. I'll let someone else go, and I'll bring up the other ones if y'all don't.
I've got two.
Go for it.
For me, Rage 2. I played the demo at E3.
Real quick,
the Bethesda
Far Cry
experience.
New Dawn looks a lot like Rage 2.
It does, exactly. And Rage 2 is amazing. Rage was a game that I was actually hyped for following like a year up to its actual release and was really disappointed with it. Actually playing Rage 2, knowing that id is working on it, id and Avalanche. Avalanche, who did the car combat in the Mad Max game, which was really great. And id, who obviously did Doom. It's like a match made in heaven.
Avalanche,
the gameplay is super
who also
cool.
did my most disappointing game of the year, Just Cause 4.
That's true. That's true. But you know what? The cars might not have had the cars that you wanted, but did the cars drive nicely?
I'm hoping that they at least have the competency of id and just the technology of Avalanche.
So yeah, and like fair enough, I didn't actually get to do any of the car stuff in the demo, but Rage 2 was really cool. I'm really looking forward to it. The story looks really awesome.
Yeah.
I put Anthem as well because I'm kind of hyped on it. It looks really fun, especially that Ash is all hyped. I'm also hyped. I'm going to include Miniko's Midnight Market because I think there is an actual date on it now.
Best of
And
luck
it's
to
for
you.
2019, and I'm still excited to do cat farming because I want cats so badly.
Well, you're going to keep drawing those cats until then.
I know. And then Valley of the Gods, the new Camp DeSanto game.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking forward
Looks
to it.
neat.
Yeah.
I
Good
also,
call.
another reason why I'm really looking forward to it is one of my favorite artists. Her name is Claire Hummel. She has done all the character and background art concept for it. I absolutely love her artwork, and the fact that she's in there is just like it makes me double hyped. And then lastly, Cyberpunk.
That was the other one on my list, so I'm glad you
Cyberpunk,
brought it up because Cyberpunk
for sure.
2077.
So
And again, I don't think there's a release date on that one.
there's
is there?
not. I do
That's
think
It says 2019, so
but that's not official from the devs, though.
Not official.
no, but
So, like,
But it's the fact that it says 2018 makes me put it on my list.
Yeah.
So I think that we will see Cyberpunk this year. Those other ones,
November.
legitimately, Last of Us and Death Stranding, I wouldn't be surprised to see him pushed to not come out.
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't either.
But let's take a look at the list from our chat because there's a huge list and some of them are great. So and all of them are great. You're all great people. But
There's a lot
Some
of
of them. Wow, Ash.
Well, but before we go too deep into that, I do want to talk about Cyberpunk for a second, just because I feel like it's when I was younger, there was a game series that now I feel like has died, kind of Deus Ex. Which they've released a
I love
couple
Deus
via
Ex.
Square
Such a good
Enix and
game.
whatnot, but like those have been a little bit different. But the one, the first rebooted one was pretty good. The little standalone version that they did, I think it was called Deus Ex Missing Link, between the two most recent ones, was probably the best Deus Ex game we've gotten in a long time. But Cyberpunk, to me, looks more like the first Deus Ex, which was this weird Elder Scrolls-like walk around, do whatever you want kind of thing in a cyberpunk setting. Cyberpunk could be the cyberpunk version of Elder Scrolls that we've all always wanted. You've wanted it.
I like the bright atmosphere too.
The
Everything's
aesthetic
bright,
is
everything's
gorgeous.
sunny.
It's gorgeous.
All of the Deus Ex games were pretty muted,
Yes.
pretty dark.
And that's a cyberpunk
trope.
trope. And for the new one to be like,
Right,
we're going to
exactly.
have daylight, that's pretty crazy. Go watch
Yes,
Blade Runner.
exactly.
No suns.
I'm excited about it.
No, yeah, it does look really great. And I think it's interesting to see, like, almost universally, everyone is already predicting it to be, oh, it's a great game. We just don't know when it's going to come out. Like, everyone's just, like, already, like, predestined the fact. No one's questioning this game.
Well, it's CD Projekt Red.
Because
and
it's
CD
made
Projekt
by,
Red
like,
has a
the
pretty
developer
good
that
track record.
everyone has, like, the best track record for.
Well, and
so,
with
like,
the
yeah,
Witcher games in
exactly.
particular, they just got better, right? So it's
Yes.
like they're getting.
Everybody
they're on a good
agrees that 2 is
trajectory.
better than 1 and 3 is better than 2.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you don't, all right, fine. I'll listen to your arguments, but you're wrong.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at our list here. So
It's a long list.
It's a long list.
Let's see it,
So
let's see it.
I'm just going to read down it. Watch Dogs 3, Arcade Spirits,
Yep.
Control. Someone remind me what Control is?
Yeah,
I have
I
no
need to
idea.
be. I know I've heard about Control.
I think it's a PS4 game, but I don't know much on it.
it is a PS4 game.
Oh, I've seen this. Yes, I've seen this.
I'm going to keep
It's
going.
from 505.
Last of Us 2, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Kingdom Hearts 3.
Long time
Okay.
friggin' coming, that game. I will say this. I will say Kingdom Hearts 3 was a game that they first started hyping when we were in high school.
Yeah.
I just want to put that out there. I'm a 32-year-old man, and they started hyping that game when I was in high school.
I wasn't in high school.
Rick was not in high school.
Gloomhaven. I don't actually know what that game is.
Gloomhaven apparently is based on a board game.
Okay.
It's,
Oh, is it based on Gloom, the card game?
No,
No, it's not.
it's not.
Okay, different,
It's something
okay.
else, yeah.
Days Gone, which is a game
Days
that
Gone looks horrifying.
I don't
Zombie
think
game
there's
on PlayStation, right?
I don't think there's an official release for it yet. I would love to see it released this year. It does look really interesting.
It looks horrifying in the fact that there's just hordes of zombies.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
went with the horde aspect.
And
I
bear
think I'd get-
zombies and wolf zombies
Yes.
and all.
I-
they went
oh my
next
God.
level.
So
The idea of like a
oh.
mountain of people just running at you scares me.
oh, there's a long list. Let's keep going.
Yeah, let's keep
And I just want to say the next one, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. That was on my short list. Absolutely looking forward to that. I feel like that should have more votes.
Yes.
That's going to be an
I
amazing
still
game.
haven't played the first one. I need to, and I know.
Animal Crossing Switch.
Yes, I need that.
Sure, it'll happen.
I need it. I need it.
I would
It's
love
gonna
it to happen. Not officially announced at all yet.
No, they teased it. They did tease it.
They said
No,
there would
they-
be one this year, but like every Animal Crossing fan has ever since January 1st, 2019 has been like, "Where's my announcement? Where's my where is it? Tell me."
It'll happen
Sick-
at E3.
Sekiro Shadows Die Twice.
That looks neat. I'm on board with that one. I'm excited.
I mean, that's just another Dark Souls. I'm not on board with that one.
But it's ninja. It's a ninja Dark Souls.
Garden Paws, Satisfactory, hopefully. I'd say you're probably going to get that one this year. I think that's a safe bet.
Yeah.
Horizon Zero Dawn 2, you're not going to get that one this
that's not
year.
happening.
There's
I
no
would
way-
love
there's
to
no
hear
chance.
an
We would have heard
announcement
at
of
E3.
it.
We would have heard at
Yeah.
E3 if that was
Yeah.
coming out.
If they've already announced The Last of Us 2 and Death Stranding, and they haven't announced Horizon Zero Dawn, that's going to be 2020.
Unless
at
you're
the very
hyped for a
soonest.
Horizon Zero Dawn 2 announcement, which
Yes.
might happen in 2019.
or
So-
a new Horizon Zero Dawn DLC.
Subnautica Below Zero.
I've never
yeah,
heard of that.
That's a standalone.
That's a standalone DLC. It's going to be great.
In the Valley of the Gods.
Yep.
Solid.
Biomutant. Biomutant looks really interesting.
Is that's
I
not
got that game confused with Mutant
with
Year
Mutant
Zero.
Year Zero? Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Biomutant. I'm excited for that one for sure. That's more up my alley, I think.
Oh yeah, Biomutant. Yes.
The Pathless. I don't know anything
I don't
about the
know that one.
Pathless.
Yeah.
Let's look that up.
And then Ooblets, obviously.
Oh,
we have a lot of
Ooblets, yes.
we have a lot of love for Ooblets. As Sable, that rings a
what that
bell, but I'm having a hard
We'll
time
we
look
can
remembering.
get all
both
these
up. We'll
things
look
while
those
you're
ones,
saying
the
it.
Pathless and Sable.
And then
Oh
Boyfriend
wow, this
Dungeon.
is gorgeous.
Boyfriend
Yes.
Dungeon, we're super stoked for.
Boyfriend Dungeon, I have been hyped for. I spent like half of my packs at
So,
their booth. They were right next
I'm
to
sup-
Monster Prom. It was great.
I'll say right off for the top, I'm surprised to not see Ghost of Tetsuo on this list. Ghost of Tetsuo is the other ninja game that's made exclusively. It's made by Sucker Punch. It's made by the former.
Ooh, Sable looks pretty.
Sucker Punch, who did Infamous.
Who
which we
did
talked about
Infamous?
earlier.
Who did Infamous? Yes, and it's exclusive to PS4. It looks amazing. I'm really excited for that one.
So
Ben, right at the top, you put Watch Dogs 3. I'd say good luck. That's not announced
Not
yet.
happening. Not happening.
Yeah.
So
Firestar-
unless Ubisoft wants to pull a Bethesda and be like, we're announcing this game and we're releasing it in like 3 months, I'd love to see that. I don't think that's usually Ubisoft's track record though.
So
Yeah.
Firestar put in the Pathless, and I just watched the trailer. It looks gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm looking at it
She
right
said
now. I'm like,
that they're
oh, I'm
made
on board.
by the folk that did Abzu, and I absolutely loved Abzu.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
It's-
I'm
it
on
looks
board.
gorgeous.
It's the same gorgeous look too. Everything looks great,
It reminds me of Journey. You know, it's this very
Yeah.
like
but it's like Woman in a
painterly
Hawk.
Yeah, it looks great.
It looks,
That looks
really
gorgeous.
pretty.
I'm on board for that. And the other one, Sable, also very unique art style. It's like a cell shaded.
Yes, Sable
kinda
I have
same.
seen before.
Looks very
I
cool.
just-
Looks very cool.
Yeah. So, a lot of cool games in there. I really hope to see Animal Crossing Switch. I have a lot of love for Animal
I
Crossing.
think they will. They will release it, but it'll be in November. Like it's gonna be
Yeah,
a year
it'll
from
it'll
now.
be a long time.
Yeah.
I think they sort of really underestimated how quickly they needed to get that game out,
Yeah.
and yeah.
But they said they would make one this year. They said 2019 we will release a new Animal Crossing.
Oh,
Nintendo
yeah.
doesn't lie about that kind of stuff. I don't feel like when they
It
say
came out
they've
with
already been
the
working on it.
Smash announcement, and that's when they announced Isabelle. And then at the very end of it, they're also like, "Hey, guess what? We're also going to have an Animal Crossing in
No,
2019
so I'm
for the
going to correct
Switch."
you, Jazz. It's just that the fact that they had Tom Nook in the Animal Crossing announcement to sort of announce Isabelle. They didn't necessarily confirm Animal
They
Crossing is
had
happening.
an after
gotta
thing.
look it up.
It
I
was
gotta
like
look it up.
after all
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Animal
I believe
Crossing.
it was in a Nintendo. What do they call it? Nintendo Control or Nintendo Insider? Or,
Nintendo Power Magazine.
yes, that. It was whatever their public announcement where they talk about like their quarterly sales or whatever. They announced sales were bad, but that Animal Crossing was coming in 2019. I believe they did say that. Or that Animal Crossing is being made. I'm not sure they put a date on it.
No,
but
they did. It says
date.
it's 2019. It's Tom Nook saying everybody's been doing fun. They've been camping because of the Pocket Camp. Isabel's doing Smash. I better make sure there's a home to attend to. And then it cuts to Animal Crossing 2019.
Okay, so they did say 2019.
2019.
All right.
So, and that's why, like, everybody on Animal Crossing Twitter and Tumblr and everywhere else has been like since January 1st.
No,
where's
I
my
need
announcement?
it.
Where's my
I need it.
announcement?
I once I start playing that, I'll never see you guys again.
Firestar is surprised that Wolfenstein Youngblood isn't on the list. I'm surprised
I am
Jazzy didn't mention that.
I thought
Well,
you would.
I don't know
thought you
where it's
would.
going to come out. I have no idea when it's going to come
That's
out.
true.
Coming out
I
this
don't
year.
think
It's
there's
supposed to come out this year.
I don't think
Is
there's
it
an
supposed to come out
official.
this year?
Oh, so I am personally hyped on the new Doom, which is also supposed to come out on this year as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Wolfenstein, but again, Bethesda really shit in the bed this year.
Yep. Kingdom Hearts 3 people. I hope that it lives up to the hype for you.
I hope it does too.
Well, and
I
I'll
have-
say this: I will say, I don't understand the Kingdom Hearts community only because I was there day one Kingdom Hearts, and I was hyped on that franchise for a long time. But it's been so long. that I don't care about it anymore.
So convoluted.
I have become a Heartless because they took too long to make this game, and I don't understand what is the demographic that loves Kingdom Hearts, and how have you maintained your love for this series over 30 years?
Yes.
It hasn't been that long.
Is Joel Haley Osment still the voice of Sora?
Haley Joel Osment.
Haley Joel Osment.
The face. Is he still the voice of Sora?
He probably is.
Hey guys.
He probably is.
Sora here.
I think I
Coming
heard
back.
that he
Play some
recorded all of his
games.
lines while he still had his voice. I don't know.
Oh man.
I mean, yeah,
All
they
I know
probably did all
is
the
that-
voice acting like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
All I know
Look,
is
Haley
that
Joel Osment is still kicking it. All right, he's still in some great stuff.
He was
He's
in
He's
the
always
Entourage
Sunny
movie.
and
He was
stuff.
great.
Yeah, he's funny. He's
Well,
very
and
funny.
he's in that show on Hulu, the oh crap, what's it called? The time traveler one that's produced by Seth Rogen. Anyway, he's in that too. He's great.
Oh,
Future Man? Future Man.
Future Man.
Yeah. I will say, I had a love for Kingdom Hearts. Then they decided to put it on like the DS, and I was like, well, I can't afford that. Then they decided to go and put it on another console.
Yeah.
And then they put out Kingdom Hearts 2, and then you're like, well, how do we jump from this storyline to this storyline? Because I didn't. And then there's another game, and I'm like, you twisted the story so much that I don't care anymore.
Birth by Sleep and 3 out of 11 Hearts Loved or whatever those games are called, that doesn't count. And if you think they count, that's great. And I appreciate you because you understand that there's like an extended universe. But for normies like us, that's just homework. That's too much.
Hey, I'm just gonna say, I played the first one. I don't care. You guys get us into this convoluted story as you want to. I'm not gonna
I
play.
like the first one, and I like
I
the
didn't play
second
Kingdom
one.
Hearts 2.
I will watch.
Don't care.
I will watch people play Kingdom Hearts 3.
You know what?
I don't care to play. it.
Give me a gummy ship standalone game. Just let me build some gummy
Hey,
ships.
that's a good idea.
All right. I'll be a happy guy. That's the only thing I care about.
The last thing.
No, I really quickly want to say another anticipated game because it comes out at the end of this month. Resident Evil 2, the remake, because that's the greatest
that's right.
survival horror game ever made, and I think that this one will prove it. Because every other horror game that's come out in the past like 5 years sucked, other than the other Resident Evil game and like maybe like one Dead Space.
That game had
They're all
the
garbage.
best jump scare
Yeah.
ever, and I still maintain. Like I still remember it.
Yeah,
It's that interrogation
I will
room.
say Soma was pretty good.
Soma's okay. From what I've seen, Soma's okay.
So,
okay.
the last thing that I want to say about this list of games here is those of you watching that have not heard of what Arcade Spirits is, the obviously most upvoted thing on this list, do yourself a favor, look into it. Maybe you might recognize a voice in it.
You won't recognize it because it's different.
Maybe you might recognize a couple of voices in it because there's
You
some
might, yeah.
pretty famous people in there
That's
too.
true.
Exactly. Go check it out. Made by our good friend Anna.
Is there actually a store link or a Steam link for it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
February 12th,
So-
I think.
Oh,
12, 2 days
my
before
goodness.
Valentine's.
I didn't realize they had a Steam store.
That's right. Buy it and play it with your sweetheart.
You can romance me.
I don't know.
I'm gonna romance you anyway, man.
You do every day.
I do.
I need to tell you.
You're the score chaser? What a tryhard.
It's true. I play the tryhard.
All right, nerds.
That makes perfect sense. That's why they had you in mind.
I think that's where we're going to wrap this thing up on this year in review. It's been a long one this year. Every year, I think we managed to make it longer.
We need a moderator to shut us up.
We do. We need someone to like have the
We need
timer
someone to
go.
play us
Time
out.
doesn't say.
Play us
That's
out.
enough.
Someone play us out.
Nope,
we need the
don't do
music.
that. Yeah, like
over.
Yeah.
Next year, it's going to be 8 hours. Deal with it. Get ready for it.
We're gonna have twice as many categories.
Yes. But with that, if we missed any games, if we failed to mention something, I'd love to hear about it in the comments, tweet them at us, stuff like that. I'd love to know because honestly, that's the most interesting thing to me is finding out games that I didn't know about. So let us know. With that, I hope you guys had fun listening to us gab. We've been Stumped. I've been Astro, Rick, Price, and Jasmine. We'll catch you all next time.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.